Okay, welcome everyone to the Montana State Library Commission October meeting. I'm Robin Scribner, Chairman of the MSL Commission, and I call this meeting to order. As your chair, I'm going to work to ensure that this commission has an effective meeting with a transparent decision-making process, and I would like to ask our commissioners and staff members to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
I'm Carmen Cuthbertson. I am Carmen Cuthbertson, Commissioner from Kalispell.
Hi, good morning. I'm Tammy Hall. I'm a commissioner from Bozeman, Montana, appointed by the governor. This is my second year.
Brian Rossman. I'm representing the Montana University System on the commission.
And Tom?
Tom Burnett in Bozeman, Commissioner. Good morning.
And Elsie. Good morning, Elsie.
Good morning. It's Wednesday. I just got off another meeting. Thank the Lord it's Wednesday and not another Monday. So it's good to be part of the commission.
All right, thank you. And then we'll have our staff introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jenny Stapp, your state librarian. Genevieve Lighthizer, admin specialist with the state library.
All right. Well, generally, if we have any questions about Robert's rules, we have Commissioner Peggy Traylor agreed to help us. But Peggy is in Europe or else she may be on her way home. She's either in Rome or on her way home. She's had a magnificent trip. I've been following, she probably doesn't want me to say this, but I've been following her on Instagram and she's just, oh my word, I can't wait to see pictures. But I'm hoping we don't have any issues, but if we do, we'll rely on our other commissioners to help. Another reminder, if we're struggling to phrase a motion, I as chair may allow the discussion on how the motion should be phrased. Not in all motions, but using my discretion, I may allow a limited discretion in the phrasing of the motion. Okay, with that being said, I'd like to ask if there are any changes or additions to the agenda. Online, anybody? Tom?
No.
Okay, as there are none, let's go on to the consent agenda. Does anyone want anything pulled from the consent agenda to be discussed separately? Okay, this includes the minutes from the August 14th meeting. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I second that.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as is. Is there any further discussion? Is there any public comment? Seeing as there is none, we will now vote on the motion, which is to accept the consent agenda. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, the consent agenda has been approved by a voice vote. All right, we're on to the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financial report. Are there any questions regarding the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financial report to make it clearer? We have a static. Are there any questions regarding it? Okay, do I have a motion to accept the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financial report?
I so
I
move.
move so.
Okay. Tom, will you second it?
I second it.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financial report. Is there any further discussion?
I just would like to make a comment. I'm really pleased that the plan worked out with Melissa and the staff to stay within our budget. Seems to really be working great. And I feel like staff really has a good handle on proceeding carefully to make sure we're going to be okay financially because of the MGIA fund that is so low. So I'm very pleased to see that.
Yes, we had a great financial report on Friday, and I was very appreciative of the work that they're doing to try to keep everything together and under control and not go beyond our means. All right. So is there any further discussion? Any public comment? Okay, if not, we'll now vote on the motion, which is to accept the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financial report. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, all opposed say no. Okay, the fiscal 2025 first quarter financial report has been approved by a voice vote. Okay, we're zooming, aren't we? We now welcome the Federation coordinators with their fiscal year 2024 Federation reports. We're happy to see everybody this morning.
No, Gail Bacon is down there right now. She moved. Right, and from Belgrade. She moved from Belgrade. She retired this summer, and so they're in West Palm Beach. I texted her yesterday. She said, so far, so good, but still.
All right, so when you guys want to talk, make sure to push the button on the little microphone that will. Thank you.
So commissioners, obviously Tracy with the State Library. And I work with the Federation coordinators. And so I am joined by 4 of them today. Jonna Underwood, who represents Golden Plains, and Abby Dooley, who represents Tamarack, were unable to join us today, but they did give me some highlights, so I will be able to share for them. But I want to let the others introduce themselves, and we decided to just go back and forth and do a bit of a panel, sharing our highlights and themes from the region, and also talk about the expenditure of the $4,000 for trustee training. We're going to do that as well. And I promised Susan Gregory that you would be very gentle with her because she's a new coordinator and she stepped in to fill this role. And I was like, don't worry, it'll be just fine. So if each of you would just introduce yourselves and what federation, and then if there's a brave soul who wants to go first to talk about what's going on in your region, that'd be great.
I'll go first. I'm Susan Gregory. I'm from Bozeman, the director of the Bozeman Library, and I'm the Broad Valleys coordinator as of late last spring.
Good morning, Sarah Peterson. I'm the director of the Miles City Public Library, and I am the coordinator of the Sagebrush Federation, our southeastern Montana.
I'm Valerie Frank. I am the director of the Blaine County Library in Chinook, and I am the Pathfinder Federation.
Nancy Schmidt. I am the director of the Laurel Public Library and the coordinator for South Central Federation, right where it says.
Geographic name. All right. You can have this one. No. No, that was. I guess I should be grateful you sat by me. All right, who wants to go first with some highlights from your region? Okay.
All right, so some great things that were happening in the Sagebrush Federation. I would love to talk about Macomb Library, that's Circle, Montana. Mary James is the director there, and she received a $20,000 grant from the American Library Association. And she wanted to really reconsider what she was doing with her children's library. And they have very low circulation and also had very few library cards in their entire library. They did a complete reorganization. If you imagine the standard library with all of the spines facing out in a children's library, it's very hard to find what they're looking for. And we all do judge a book by its cover. So she recreated the whole children's library. Everything faces forward in bins. And they went from maybe 30 library cards to over 200. and this is large in Circle. Her children's nonfiction circulation went up over 100%. All of this is happening when their road is completely under reconstruction. So there's piles of dirt, there's nowhere to park. And it was just a great success for Mary, just a tiny library. In Miles City, we also received the same grant, but $10,000, and we put in hands-free access to our main entrance door, which was not in any way ADA accessible. And now it is completely. That's been a huge deal for our courier and also for our patrons. And it's not just, it's a universal design. It's moms with strollers, parents with strollers. It's people with full arms and it's people, yeah, it's everybody. And that's been a huge, huge thing for us. A little, should I do any more of you or just keep going? Because I will just keep going.
Can I just ask, did
Yes.
you say those grants were from the American Library Association?
Yes, yes, they are a libraries transforming communities. And it's for small and rural libraries to increase, it's generally Americans with disabilities, but really with that universal design for everybody to better access the library.
Okay, great. Just yay, ALA.
Yes. We're also looking at that again this year for a very similar project to Mary, because multiple libraries across the state have had such success with the children's collection doing it that way. So it sounds pretty exciting to us too. So we're thinking about it. So for our Federation money, one of the most, well, there's a lot of important things that we use our Federation money for. And one of the cool things we do is we purchase a media license for all of the libraries, 10 libraries in our Federation. So we all can stream or present movies to our patrons without running into any sort of copyright or any sort of viewing issues. And that's a pretty big deal. It's been really important for us. We went to a 4-day school week. And so Fridays are open, and being able to offer a movie for school age kids on Fridays has been pretty important to us. Let's see what else. Oh, the $4,000 has been pretty impactful. We chose last year to distribute it in $400 to each of our 10 libraries. We thought that would be the best way to really meet some unique needs that each of our libraries and our trustees have. Our librarian brought us, she had no television, no screen to broadcast anything. And when they were wanting to watch training videos like from the state library, they had no way to do that. So she bought a TV, and now they can watch that and also be on Zoom if they need to, which is a lot better than on a phone. So that was really great. And also she mentioned to me that having her agenda posted where she can zoom into it and make it large has been a huge benefit. So I really appreciated that. The biggest impact our Federation money has is Library to Go. Very rural area, very rural. I'm the largest library. I pulled some really interesting information. Our total Federation population is about 43,000 people. We have about 11,000 in Custer County. The total Libby checkouts for fiscal year 24 was 61,694. So that's just over 18,000 more checkouts than there are humans in all of our 10 counties. We can't do Library to Go without being part of the Federation. It's so important to us and our rural patrons. Let's see, what else do I have? Can I talk a little bit about some concerns that I have? This is definitely the group I want to pick some brains, not today. I want to pick some brains. We struggle with trustee participation at our Federation for a lot of reasons. And we've started, I've only been the coordinator for a year. I'm also a new director, just under a year. My plate's pretty full, but this is something we need to change. The federations are for trustees' involvement. And so we've been talking about how we can get some more involvement in having that participation. We all kind of have some board fatigue in our small communities. We have a lot of folks on a lot of boards. I don't think that's unusual, but with small populations, a lot of folks want to do a lot of good things. And sometimes that's a challenge when we ask them to do more. But a couple of things that we're working on is I really want to talk to trustees. I talk to mine all the time, but I want to talk to the trustees in Ekalaka, in Jordan, personally at their board meeting. And what can we do? I want to talk about why it's important to visit with other trustees, why they could really benefit from some training, some more information. We just need to know what they're what's preventing them. Is it interest? Is it time? How can we help with that? And I don't think there's any other way to do that than me going to them and talking to them personally. Plus I get to go to every library in the Federation, and that's pretty cool. Let's see. One other thing that we did talk about is there are several board vacancies across our Federation. We struggled with that in Miles City, where we had 3 board members for a while. And then we had 4 for a long time. We have 5 now, which is fantastic. This is not unusual in our Federation, just finding people who want to contribute time. A lot of library lovers out there, a lot of library patrons, but going kind of above and beyond and really being involved. I don't know why that is, and I'd like to find out. I think we need some sort of a mentoring in the broad term, some sort of onboarding process that really emphasizes why your professionalism, why your continuing education, libraries are always changing, why that matters and why that's so important as a library trustee, not to scare people away, but why it's so important. So that's another thing we're kind of talking about is, but I think just the connection of reaching out to trustees to find why you're not participating and how can we change that. I had 2 trustees from the Miles City Public Library at the Federation meeting, and that was fantastic. We haven't had participation in probably 2 years, 3 years. And I love to see them there. We're using some incentive money to help make their time worthwhile. And we had one from Sydney. So we have some work to do. We have some work to do, but there's only one way to go is up. So I'm excited about that. And I think this group in particular has probably some insight to offer. And, I'd love to hear any suggestions, probably not today. Any questions that anybody has for me? I'm just scrolling through my notes to make sure I don't miss anything.
I hear your concerns, and I have seen that, even in my area. And a lot of it is probably jobs, volunteering to be a trustee is a lot of work. I mean, monthly meetings and trying to keep up on, that's what I see locally. That's probably one of the biggest, and moms and little kids, what do you do with your child when you have are your meetings during the day, your Federation meetings? Yeah, they would be during the day, of course.
They are,
Yeah.
and we're kind of talking about some ways we can do that. They're usually on Friday, and like I said, we have a 4-day school week, so they're not on
right.
Friday. I thought, well, what if we offered some childcare?
Or could you change it to?
We're talking about that too. There's a little bit of blowback on that kind of creatures of habit type thing, but
Yes.
It's not in the bylaws that it's a certain day of the week.
Right. I would change it.
Yeah.
Because the kids are home then. What do you do with them?
What do you do?
Right. I
What do
mean,
you do?
getting young moms would be the way to go. I would be trying to get young moms into the library and getting their interest piqued.
Our two newest ones are young professional parents who are not local or native, I guess, to Miles City. They're new to Miles City within the last 3 or 4 years. And young children, and they were patrons first. And that's really exciting to me
Mhm.
that we have some retired school librarians. We have 2 on the board, a retired school teacher, but then also these new patrons. The diversity is great.
Mhm.
No, I think those are great suggestions. Time is the factor.
Oh, definitely,
Always.
definitely.
I have two questions for you.
Yes.
What particularly was the incentive money that you used?
So we were receiving the $4,000 from the that was added to our budget from the commission for trustee training. And we provided some mileage reimbursement from one of the trustees does live out of town. And like I said, one's from Sydney. So we helped contribute to the cost of her travel.
Good, thanks. The other one is, do the trustees feel that their work is important? What do you expect of your trustees? Do trustees feel responsible?
You know, I think that's a great question, and that's something I definitely want to know. That's why I want to talk to them. I hope that they do. I'm certain mine do, but I would really like to know why they're doing this, why they are trustees, and how we are supporting them as directors. If they're not feeling supported or important, they are absolutely not going to want to continue. And I don't want it to be a drag. We are asking a lot of trustees. They're confirming our budget. That's a big deal.
Yeah, they must have
And
something to do.
yeah, that's a great concern. Are they feeling valued?
Yes, and besides the full day for a federation meeting, and you have monthly meetings?
Yes.
Yes, and all the material that you need to prepare to read to be prepared for the meeting. Yeah,
I'd like to hear from Carmen because she is a trustee.
yeah,
I can only speak to my personal experience, but I had the impression that trustees had been completely disempowered and shoved aside and told to be quiet and listen what the professionals have to say, which is the librarians and the director. And it took a while to actually get to the MCA and realize who's supposed to be in charge of a public library, and it's your local trustees. So I think that feeling of being told you're just a average Joe or Jane and you don't really know how a library is supposed to run, and you just need to sign off on whatever the professionals tell you, that's completely depressing and unpleasant to be met with that attitude. And I think that's possibly keeping a lot of people from even trying to volunteer. And also, the libraries being in the spotlight, why would you jump into something very controversial where you're going to be attacked in your local newspaper if you bring in your own opinion? I think very few people are willing to do that, and I think that's part of the problem. So I'm hoping that with good training, and the state library is doing some training regarding your legal responsibilities and powers, I think that might attract more people to realize that they will be relevant as a trustee. And, it doesn't need to be adversarial. If you love your library, you should be able to come to some common ground and do your job well. So I think it's a whole slew of things. Some of it may be under your local control, and some of it is just the mood right now with libraries being in the crosshairs. But I'm glad that we're having this discussion and that the state library now offers this really great training to tell new trustees what actually their legal situation is as a trustee, because To me, that was very empowering. To understand what I'm supposed to do and not supposed to do is crucial. So I'm hoping that with those $4,000, the federations can educate their trustees better and attract more by giving them the confidence that they don't have to worry so much about taking a misstep, doing something wrong, and then getting shredded for it. I think that's the right direction to go, and I hope that that will solve some of the problems of not having trustees volunteer for this job.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom?
I'd like to commend, is it Sarah that's speaking from Miles City?
Yes, Tom.
Okay, I'd like to commend your effort to reach out to these individuals and ask them questions that are so will be so informative when you find out what's causing them to volunteer and what's standing in the way of their active leadership. That's terrific.
Thank you. And Carmen, I think you brought up a really great point, and I really appreciate you saying that it just might be fear or hesitation because it is a tough climate right now. And especially if you're not being treated as a professional or knowledgeable. And that's our job, to help our trustees feel that way. That's a great point. Thank you.
Madam Chair, am I incorrect in assuming somebody mentioned it, but the trustees are actually have to sign off on the purse strings? The trustees are more than just helpful. They are basically a legal advocate for that library. This is a very serious business. And I had this question before, but I know the Board of Education requires that school board trustees have to take training. And the training is a 2-day training, and you cannot serve as a school board trustee, even if you're elected until you've taken the training. And the training is objective. It's the legal process, it's the budgetary process, it's the policies of the state that you have to follow. It's very, very objective discussion about what your role is. And I want to know who would require such training of the trustees. And if so, then who would be responsible to put on objective training of what they are legally responsible for? Because I'm very concerned that there are people out there. I'd rather one trustee who totally understands their role and the law and what they have to do than 3 or 4 who are sort of loosey-goosey. Well, they talked me into this, but I can't make the meetings. This is a very serious role. And that's why I think we agreed the $4,000 to add it back in the budget for trustee training. Because when I was on the Federation for the year as this commissioner's person, I learned a lot. One was to have tremendous respect for all you who chair these. And you're as busy as everyone else, but you agreed to take this on. And the plea that I heard from all of you was being responsible for what trustees are supposed to do, even to the point that they are supposed to be at the meetings. They're supposed to outline what's going to happen. They don't even know. Some of them don't even come. And you have to take the budget to them. And this is just unacceptable. This is a group of people not doing their job. And I think they don't understand it. And I don't know how we go about fixing that, but
I
go ahead.
excuse me. Does the library, the state library, provide extensive training before the trustee comes on board, or when the trustee is appointed? Is there specific training for the librarian to say, go to this website, here it is right for you? This is, and then we say, this is what you do, welcome. Is there specific training for that?
Yes. The key though is finding out when the new trustees join, because it will vary. But when we do know, that's why we created the MSL Learn, the YouTube channel with bite size. Here's information about the open meeting law. Here's your responsibilities when it comes to budget and finance. And so we wanted to do those short videos that were Montana specific, that the board could watch together so that you have veteran board members mentoring the new board members as well as the director to explain the nuances locally. And then I do training with the boards. So like this Saturday, I will go to the Phillips County Library in Malta, and we're going to do an all-day training on the role of the board, open meeting laws, the powers of the board, and then working on some stuff they have with the public library standards. And I will also be doing the same thing with Glendive because they have new trustees. So that's the key, is letting the library directors know. So that's actually a role the consultants play. And we as consultants can go out directly to the libraries. And we usually I like to work with the director and the board chair together with the full board's input so that we cover what they need. But I always try to talk about the job of the board, particularly if I know that this is a new board who may not know what their responsibilities are. I think the piece, if I may, that I see all of us struggle with is we want the boards to be where you're talking about, you help design the budget, you adopt the budget, you review the financials, you understand what you're looking at, you're very thoughtful about the policies you adopt, you're a part of the planning process. But when you are going from, we've never had to do that, it's like that scaffolding. And that's what I think I'm trying to figure out. And that's what I like about the consultants going out individually. The YouTube videos, the MSL Learn class, that's like your baseline. This is what you need to know.
And are they listed somewhere? Can the librarian take this list and give it to the trustees? And do they do that?
That is a great question. We advertise it a lot in our continuing education newsletter. I think that's a good reminder, though, that even though we might feel like we've said that 100 times, we still just need to say it 100 more and make sure that library directors are aware of it. I know that they are because I've had anecdotally, several library directors and board members mention those trainings. So I know that they're watching them and we can see through the views how many people are doing that, but I don't know how consistent they are in making sure that that's covered. The other thing I'm thinking of too, though, is intermediate, because once they've watched those, what do they need next? And that's the scaffolding piece.
And Madam Chair, I would just say that, again, I want to go back to the, the stick and the candy, which one do we use? But we have to go way back to who appoints the trustees. And I know it's different with every one of our boards. That's one of the problems. They all have such different government structures. Another thing I learned on the Federation is that, Bozeman has a board of trustees that are, and so they know within that, if you are come on this board, here is what you are expected to learn, et cetera, et cetera. We have to, whoever appoints them, if it's the county commissioner in some places, or a city commissioner, or a private library, or a tribal library, that they need to understand when you appoint your trustees, they are required legally to do these things, and they have to take part in this training. Tom, would that be an appropriate thing to be addressed in the legislature or not?
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
Tammy, I think that's a great point. I was about to try and formulate it myself. Perhaps our staff, our training staff, the consultants, could direct some of their efforts toward the appointing authority and say, you're appointing people to this responsible position. You really need to hold them accountable for getting trained and getting up to speed. Because if it's the library, the head librarian that's feeding it to the person, that's a little bit of a turning over of the lines of responsibility.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that, Tracy Cook?
Just a second. We have. Go ahead. Didn't you want something? Yeah.
Yes, hi, this is Susan Gregory, Broad Valleys and Bozeman, and I'd like to speak to the importance of recruiting people who want to be board members. The interesting thing about our process in Bozeman, they are appointed by the city commission. However, the liaison from that commission to the library board takes input from the trustees. And so there's also an interview process where there are 6 standard questions for all city boards. and we use them when the library board interviews. And in that process of interviewing the individuals, it comes down to, why do you want to serve on the board? And what do you think is most important about the library? And if you were on this board, what changes would you like to see? So we recently went through this process, and one gentleman who had also been a trustee for 10 years in Glendive and fully understands the relationship between a community, the library, state library. We were very, very gratified because he said, I would not change anything. My goal would be to keep the library at its current state of excellence. That tells me that we have good communication in our community. And so part of looking for effective trustees is finding people who love the library, just love the library, and they also understand why a library is important in a community. And because they're community oriented, they want to serve. And I think also, Carmen, I do want to say, I'm so sorry that you've got this experience where you are of being made to feel or feeling disrespected. I think one of the things that we're very proud of that takes time to build with the Bozeman Library Board is mutual respect between the trustees and the library professionals. So it's very common in our meetings for the trustees to turn to me or to the assistant director and say, what do you think we should do? And then in turn, we respect them for their various professions. For example, we have a board chair who taught library science at Rutgers. We have a gentleman who was past school superintendent in Bozeman. As I said, we have somebody who also served on another library board. Then let me throw this out before I forget. In terms of bringing as many people of different ages to a library board meeting, what we have had success with is having the meetings on Wednesday afternoons at 4 o'clock. And so what happens is we had a young mom with very small children who served on the board for 2 terms for 10 years because she would be able to pick up her children at school and then come to the board meeting. And she could bring the kids to the board meeting. They could sit there and color. It was fine. So, I mean, sometimes just looking at how you're having your meeting and when, I think is a good idea. But I would stress communication is extremely important. And so I am very, very fortunate. We have a board chair who is retired and very interested in staying in touch with what's going on at the library. We talk frequently during the month. But I would say building relationships, the budget. Tammy, you brought up the budget. Yes, library boards are governing boards. They approve the budgets. In our case, the library board will approve the budget, then it goes to the city of Bozeman for the final sign off. That's where it's really helpful to build those strong relationships with your city or your county so that they trust you when you come in. And the last thing I want to say is the YouTube trainings from the state library are incredibly valuable. And because Pam Henley, who was a consultant, is also a trustee of ours. And so she's great. She keeps us on top of our training. But what we do is I talk with the board chair, but we'll build the board agenda, go through the agenda. And at the end of the agenda, it's a board training session. And we have used a lot of the YouTube videos, which are extremely well done. And then also Tracy, you've done an online training for us. And then Colette at the State Library did a training for us. So I think part of it is knowing how to build your agenda and recruiting the right people in the first place, and then building those relationships.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate for people online that there are specific trainings from Tracy Cook, from our continuing ed, from our Montana State Library consultants that the trustees can go online and watch. But I would like a list personally. I would like to see a list of the trainings. Perhaps we could send those out to every board trustee across the state. If you have their emails, send that list of training across the state. That possibly could be a good way to get, I mean, if it came from the Montana State Library, they may say, oh, let's take a look at this. Let's watch. Go ahead, Tracy. Yes.
Out of respect to Tom, since he asked me a specific question, may I answer
Oh,
that?
sure.
Yeah. So Tom, I, a few years ago, began working with, I'm starting with county commissioners. So I started attending the Montana Association of Counties Conference and developing relationships with commissioners to understand their perspective and what they were working on and how libraries can be a part of, I call it kind of working together for the benefit of the community. And as a result of that, I forged stronger relationships with the commissioners and stronger relationships with local government center. And so we're seeing more library boards join the health board, fair board, and so forth to get that training on. Here's the open meeting law. Here's how you conduct yourselves. Here's Robert's rules. Here's how you have effective meetings. And so I think my sense, it's taken a few years, but I really feel like the last time I went to Mako, I could really tell that the county commissioners were beginning to kind of associate the state library with training and with serving those boards and with helping them to be successful. And so the next on my list is I would like to develop those relationships with the league. And now that I'm back to being fully staffed, that is my hope next year and kind of my goal, so that we can reach the city libraries as well. But I do know the word is getting out because I would say when I look at my stats, I talk to a lot more local government officials than I have before. And I think that is because of those connections and they talk to each other. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Madam Chair, I found out about the state library somehow by accident. So nothing came to me when I became a trustee directly from the state library. So I'm wondering, I don't know if the Public Library Survey currently collects that data every year, but if it's legal, can the state library collect trustee emails and then send an email to every trustee and making them aware of it? Because again, we're putting all that on the library director. And maybe the state library could onboard every trustee that's new every year and send a reminder.
That
to the
was
previous ones.
my
Yeah,
thought too.
collect
Yes,
their
I
email
agree.
address.
Yes. Yeah, that we should be doing that. We should be spreading the information. Is that, Jenny, do you believe that's part of our job?
Oh, I absolutely believe that's part of our job. Like Tracy said, some of the challenges in getting the communication about when there is trustee turnover, because it's not like a school board election where they're all elected at the same time. Trustees come and go throughout the year and there's a fair amount of turnover in some cases. And we have to rely on the local libraries to communicate that information to us so we know. So there's a back and forth communication that needs to happen, but I absolutely think if we can nail down how that communication happens, our ability to reach those trustees is something that we can and should do.
Madam Chair, I appreciate what Sarah said, and she said we're trying to change things. And whenever you try to change things, it kind of shocks people and it's like, oh, but that's not the way we've been doing it. But it's such an important change we're making, and it'll help our librarians and especially you so much. And I think like I said, the Federation leaders are just as busy, more so than everybody else, because they're the ones who are willing to step up. So I think if people get used to the people, whether it's the city commission, the county commission, the private commission, whoever is appointing their trustees, if they get used to understanding that mailing us the new names is part of their process, and it's going to take a while to get them to understand that. Might be many, many mailings on our part. We need to know who your trustees are so we can directly send them what is available for training. Then I think they'll catch on. And then when they get new, it'll just become something that they do and they know they have to do, and you won't have to sort of run them down. So I think that's the goal here, is to get to the point where the people understand. We have great training for trustees. We're here to help. So, and we funded some help. So let's move up. Yeah. Do we need a motion of any kind for that? Or is that something we can add to check on in? How do you feel, Tracy?
I mean, it's fine if you would like to do a motion, but I absolutely can continue with that. That's an interesting thing to think about.
Put together all trustees.
I sense that it varies in communities how formal that process of appointment is.
Oh, I know. Yes. I learned that from the Federation. It's very loosey-goosey some places.
Yeah. I mean, some communities are just way more laid back.
Mhm.
But I really feel like the library directors absolutely will tell us when they have new trustees. It's remembering to do that, and it's figuring out how to get a good process is what you're talking about going. And I definitely feel like they love it when we connect with them. I mean, they're just so excited when we say, we can send a consultant out there, because they'll say, I have board members who are really reluctant to do the online training. It's like, well, we'll come to you. I mean, we do that. And so I think it's just continuing to remember to get the word out, reminding them of all the variety of ways. And then, as you say, figuring out that process, whether it's through the local government officials or through the library, how we find out about new members and sending them information about the state library and its services. Is that
Madam Chair.
a good understanding of what?
Yeah, I think this is a very top priority. I
I
think,
agree.
I think we have find a fiduciary responsibility in your communities that is being dumped on the wrong people. And I don't think it's right. And I think people have to understand that this is important. And people will be more willing to serve if I know it's tempting to say to somebody, oh, I really want you to serve on this. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to show up. Just say just sign it. Sometimes we get that way, but on other times I think it's important to say this is a very serious role that we need somebody really good to fill and who's really excited about it. And we are honored if you would consider it. I know this sounds terrible, but way back when I got myself overloaded on the state high school association, the state school boards association, my school boards association, the national committee, people would ask me to be on boards. And I started to say, if you just need my name and you don't want me to come or do anything, it's a yes. If you expect me to do any work or need me to, I have to say no. And people would go, oh, okay, maybe we'll find someone else. And I think sometimes we have to be honest with people. We're not just looking for a body here. We're looking for somebody.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I don't think maybe we don't need a motion. We just express our
Mhm.
desire
Yes.
that the state library support trustees and figure out how to better do that. Do we want to have any kind of measure or timeline? Does the state library think it's okay to collect email addresses?
Do
we
you
wanna
have
start a
email
program?
addresses from the trustees?
We have a lot of them, but I don't know what percentage we have. I would say one thing I have observed, and I think it's a privacy thing, is library directors will put the generic library email address, and we just need to let them know that Aspen will allow it so that it hides the email address unless you log in. And maybe that would make them more comfortable with giving the personal email address from the trustee.
Okay.
So
Do
definitely.
most trustees have just a library instead of having a personal? No.
No, and that's something we've been trying to remind them is it might be a wise idea to have a
Right.
library board.
Right. I
email
mean, it's easy
address.
to make a Gmail.
Mhm.
Very easy just to put
Yes.
trustee Susan or, come
Mhm.
up with,
Yep.
or a last, trustee Wagner.
I think that's an educational component as well. If
Yes.
you've dealt with FOIA
Yes.
requests and whatnot,
Good
you are
idea.
very aware that you need to separate your personal email from your business email in your role as a trustee.
I mean, it can
That's
always be.
that's a very important
yes,
point.
It
So
can always be
best
deleted.
practices, best
Right.
practices for library directors would be to set up a separate email for
Mhm.
the trustees. And it's part of your open meeting law education to figure that out. But is there a measure? Do we want to say, trustees get an email directly from the state library every 2 months or once a year or and
Right.
then we see how many emails we have, or do we want to measure it by trustee participation at federation meetings? What would be a good way for us to actually realize we are doing better and we're reaching trustees and we're giving them what they need? How do we figure out whether we achieve that?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom.
I have one partial answer to that question. As part of our revising the Excellent Library Award criteria, it's possible that we could add this incentive. if the governing authority that does the appointing of the board has a full board, and that we have contact information directly to each member of that board. That would be one of our measures
Standards,
Mhm.
measures.
for deciding who's worthy of the award.
That's, I believe that would be a good idea.
That
Trustee Paul.
incentivizes the appointing authorities.
Actually, I think it would be reasonable that the libraries receiving the award be required that their trustees have taken certain training. I mean, if we want training, require training, then it should be part of an award. I don't know that you want to be giving an award to a library who has trustees who are not trained at all.
To be connected.
Would that,
I suggest we make
I
this
mean, okay.
revisions to the ELA.
I'm wondering if, so, and I see a face down there.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to get trustees, making trustees do something is not always easy, is what, one of, I think that may be difficult.
It's a
to-
culture change.
To say, you have to do this, we're not gonna get an award if you don't do, I mean, that's kind of, that would be a difficult proposition. I see a face down there. Could I ask your opinion?
I really wasn't gonna say much. This is Nancy from the South Central Federation. Getting them to do it is not the same as asking them very politely to do it. Sometimes I find that if I say, well, you need to do this or you need to do that, they're looking at me like, I'm only a volunteer here. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So when you say we are requiring them to do, it's one thing to do the training. Mine are more than willing to train, at least in my library. It has been very difficult in South Central to get trustees to get trained
Across the board.
across the board, which is why now we're deciding as part of our funding that you allowed us for me to go out with my consultant and do regional trainings. Just because for me to go to 18 individual libraries, I don't mind the idea. Totally. But I don't have that much time. Not if I'm going to stay on top of my other job. And as it is, I have staff members that are already helping me with Federation things because we have all those book hits. And I think the number when I left the library yesterday was 400 of different titles. So they're taking care of that part. And I'm trying to go out and train trustees and make sure that directors know that their trustees need to have a certain amount of buy-in in their library. Otherwise, why do you have trustees? So yeah, we're working it.
Right.
It's taking.
Do each of the 18 libraries have their own board of trustees?
Oh, yes.
My goodness.
Now,
And there's 5 per board.
no,
No?
Billings is different. They're consent and advise. So they don't tell Gavin what to do or, they're totally different. And they have, I think he said 9. Yes. And so also in our regionals, I'm including the 2 tribal colleges too. So we can get them drawn in more. This will be the first time that I've actually, other than a handshake and a hello, will be meeting with some of them. So that's going to be interesting.
Mm.
And we're providing the funding. So if the trustee from Denton can't make it to, like this last meeting was in Roundup, but they can make it down to Lewistown. But I could really use a little help with the mileage. It's not that far that way, but I could really use a little help. Then yeah, we'll incentivize them that way.
Mhm.
Mileage,
Mhm.
wherever they need
Right.
to go.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that was exactly what the $4,000 were given is
But
to
with
enable
8
travel.
Right, but with
for
18
trustees.
libraries.
Right. And we had a lot of discussion over what this 4,000 should be used for. I know one library in particular was really pushing for us to have a retreat. And I about had a rebellion on my hands because the rest are going, not only no, but heck no.
Mhm.
I am not putting that much time. These are the trustees into a meeting that I barely have time to take off for and meet on a weekend.
Mhm.
And we even had one mom, one of my trustees, she says, well, I have my daughter. I said, bring her with. Trustee in training, I don't care. Future librarian, show her how it goes. But yeah, it's been interesting. So we've settled for these regional meetings. And it's really worked. I mean, we did the Dan Clark training.
Right,
In
okay.
Billings.
Mhm.
And I think, what did we have? 15 people? I can't remember. I wasn't there. Two of my trustees went. And then, also, then we gave the rest of the money to each library for this last year to go to, meetings, MLA if they wanted mileage or the Federation meeting. And our next one is being held in Big Timber. And we do move them around. So there is some mileage that needs to be paid to some of these people, especially if they live in Bighorn County.
Yeah, your your area is
I know.
huge.
So I
Oh,
mapped it.
Yes.
Our central location for South Central is Roundup.
Roundup.
It's like, great, you have a
Right there.
motel, we'll have every one of them there.
And Denton to Roundup is, I mean, it's a ways.
It's a
Madam Chair.
ways. Yes.
I still need to go back to the very basic. This is a cultural change. Is this the job of the Federation or is this the job of our staff and us? And I don't want to be taking authority away from you. I don't want to be in any way moving jobs around that don't need to be, but I want to understand that. Right now, it feels like it's very unfair. We believe here the trustees are incredibly important.
Mhm.
So let's go
So
back
is
to
it
the
our
beginning.
Job.
Is it our job to be getting out there that there is training available? You're going to need to have training and these and that and this and trying to put it together so it works for all of you with whatever, lots of flexibility. But if I don't want to take a job that's not ours, but I also don't want to push off on you something we should be doing. And Tracy is doing an amazing, I always start by saying that. Tracy is seriously the Wonder Woman of
She
the
is.
Montana Library Association. But
Well,
yeah, so that's my question. Is this our job? Are we taking it from you? Should we be doing more? Jenny, what do you think?
Thanks for that question. I think it's yes and by that I mean it's the job of the state library. It's also with support of the Federation
Mhm.
coordinators. We are sharing the same message. We are sharing opportunities for the same trainings. We all agree that the trustees are fundamental to the success of libraries, and we want to encourage that active participation and leadership from trustees. That's the same message that libraries and trustees are getting from the state library and the Federation coordinators. We had a conversation yesterday about imprinting. And by that, I mean, people build relationships with certain people that they imprint on. And in some cases, that imprinting is Tracy and the library consultant. And in some cases, that's the Federation coordinator. And so it's a yes, and it can be that Federation coordinator. It can also be the state library and the state library consultant. And that's why our communication and relationships with the coordinators is so important.
I think the state library is responsible for the content and the training itself. But I think the Federation coordinators have the pulse of their particular libraries and what format that training should take. So the state library should have the different trainings available. And then the coordinators say, okay, we need a live, we need an online, we need a 10-minute, we need a 2-hour, we want a Saturday afternoon to get most of the trustees there. So Tammy, in response to your question, that's what I see as the roles for the two organizations.
But I'm not sure if we should tie the participation in activities to awards. Oh, and
No, I absolutely think it has to mean something.
But,
And I think
but the award doesn't really mean, I mean, does it mean that much to a trustee?
it needs to mean enough to a trustee that they know they have to get training for their library to receive this. I mean, it just, if it's that crucial to the governance of a library, which it is, they're responsible for the budget and the open meeting and to understand these laws, make sure they don't step on. There has to be a carrot and a stick, and you guys should be the carrot and we should be the stick. I'm
thi-
sorry.
I think we should start by maybe putting something into the ELSA, into the award. But if we make it part of the conditions for your library to receive the state aid, that's a whole other step.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of pressure. And now there's a big price tag on it. I would hesitate to do that. I would like to attach something along those lines to the ELSA and just see how it goes. That doesn't, get a library in trouble by losing their state funding.
Oh,
But
I
if you-
wasn't talking about funding. I was talking about the little award, not little, but the award we give for outstanding library.
I think let's tie it to the award and see what happens. It is a bit of an incentive, but at least it won't cost the library important monetary contributions, but we can see what happens.
But,
If nobody qualifies for the ELSA anymore because nobody can get their trustees to fulfill the requirement, then we know something.
I look at it though, these people are volunteers and you cannot say you have to do this or else. I mean, to me, it's an empty threat. Okay, so our library doesn't get an award, a certificate to put on the wall and then attaboy. To me, it's kind of it's almost a threat, that's the way I feel.
I would point out that our school board members are volunteers. I would point out that we're volunteers.
Yes.
And I would point out that almost all the committees in Montana that oversee the plumbing board, the
And I understand
physical
that.
therapy board, they are all volunteers and they're all required to have training to do what they do. I think the trustee job is far too important to be acting as if there aren't qualifications and needs and training that they need to do. This is different than a volunteer who comes in your library and reads to the kids. This is different than a parent who comes in to the classroom and reads to the kids. It's like a teacher's aide, and they have to have some responsibility that we have at least filled out a paper.
It's so hard in some of these places to
Agreed.
get trustees.
I know, I totally.
May I go back a little bit and answer that question as to it takes both the state library and the federation coordinators to get this training done? You guys can come down and say, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to do these 3 hours in order to meet the standards, or, get your ELSA award or whatever. But if I, as the federation coordinator, am kind of going, yeah, it's not going to happen. And my directors are coming to me and going, how am I going to get this accomplished? Yes, you gave us this money for this. Yes, these videos are online, but I can't get my trustees to take this training. Then it's not going to happen until we can come up with a way together to help them all work towards this. And even I have one trustee that just says, I am too busy to take training, but I'll be at every meeting.
But does that make an effective, useful trustee? I mean,
Well,
that's,
yes and no, because she's an advocate for my library wherever she goes. And she's a user of my library. Now, I had a trustee placed on my board a few years back that absolutely never walked in the door. And she was there because the next year someone else was going to be placed on my board. And then hopefully the year after that, they could get rid of me. It didn't work that way. I fought that battle and I won, I hope, but it was a long process. And there's no way that trustee would have ever worked for me. But this one is an advocate. Everywhere she goes, well, it helps that she's a hairdresser. So, at the salon, she's constantly talking about the library. And the things that we do and how it's helpful to everybody. So she's getting the word out there. She training is just not something that she feels that she needs to take, unfortunately. So I keep sending out the little videos for everybody, here, watch this, do this. But I may have to have the consultants come down and sit with my board just to retrain. I have one that's been there 9 years and he's ready to leave. So, but I have 4 fairly new trustees. So I'm having to retrain how they do their jobs. And that's taken more time than I want it to.
I guess it raises the question, can you fill this role if you're ignorant, but you love the library? And I'm not sure about the answer, but what does it take to be a trustee? If all it takes is I love the library, but you have no clue about open meeting law, if you get some activist community member, you're going to be in trouble. So I lean in the direction of you have to have some training, and especially the legal thing. It took me a while as a trustee to figure out that the library board is not the weeds board. We don't advise the county. We actually get to make legally binding decisions. And that is a huge difference from the advisory boards. And that is a crucial piece of knowledge. So just loving the library, I think, is not good enough. Ideally, that's who the people should be, but I absolutely believe they need to be aware of the legal framework.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Tom.
Um, In all of this, I would hope that we could make it clear to trustees that they're accountable to citizens through the authorities that appointed them. That they're accountable to citizens of the town or the county or whatever the agency that they are working for. And that's the line of authority.
So maybe we do need some kind of motion to clearly let the
It-
federations. It's not a,
It's not an action item
okay,
on the
so we
agenda,
can't.
so we can't.
Okay.
No.
But I think we can do further research. I know I'm going to check with legislators.
Okay.
I know on my own, I'm going to check with legislators about what could be done with trustee training. And I know on my own, I'll be checking with the state departments on what could be required.
Right.
Because I know it is on many boards and it is on many. And I honestly, I want to speak for the trustees. I think it's totally unfair to the trustees because in this day and age, I hate to scare you, but people can sue you for anything. People can file charges against you for absolutely anything. And even to the point you don't know who they are, what it's for. And your trustees who say, oh, I love the library, I'm willing to go in, could very easily find themselves with some they could find themselves on the evening news because of something that happened in the library that was very controversial. And they've got somebody waiting outside their hair salon with a microphone saying, you allowed this to happen to a child or this or whatever. They are susceptible in this world to all of these things. And I think they need to be protected too and understand what's going on. And I think that we have to protect the trustees too. With information, information's power. Information never hurts people. Thanks, you guys, again. I just hate putting you in the position that we should be doing.
I think we all want the same thing. We want enthusiastic library supporters who are very knowledgeable trustees so they can actually do an effective and really good job. So let's keep that in mind. Maybe we're not quite sure how we're going to get there, but I think that's ultimately the goal for all of us.
Definitely. We are running behind time now. Val, did you have it? And you weren't able to give your federation presentations. Do you want to go ahead and do that quickly or? Okay, go ahead.
I will go, yes. First of all, I just want to say I'm Valerie Frank from the Blaine County Library in Chinook, Pathfinder Federation. I like to ask at my federation meetings or, well, it worked out this time because it was before this meeting, or just send out an ask and see if there's anything that the members would like me to relay to the Board of Trustees. And what they wanted me to make sure to say is that we really, really appreciate the Montana State Library, the trainers and all the support employees for all their work and the support that they provide to the librarians. Few things as far as when you have your meetings, we did change our meetings to 4:30 in the afternoon to accommodate our school librarian who is on our board. And also I have a young man who is full-time employed. And so he can't come earlier than that either. So we did adjust the times of our meetings to accommodate board members. The rest of them are all retired, but I feel firmly that we need to have younger people in there who have children who use the library and a stake in the library. So that's been a real positive thing. I keep a list of potential board members, which is a good thing to have because you never know when you're going to have to recruit another one. I am one of those people who was kind of opposed to requiring board training because I felt that it would be burdensome to the smaller libraries. I think it has been a very, very positive thing with my library board in particular. I have learned a lot of things. We watch the YouTube trainings a lot. We do that at our monthly meetings. So we usually do a 20 to 30-minute training at the meeting. And that way you're not asking people to, take more time out. You just,
Meetings. How long are your meetings?
usually my meetings only run about an hour
No,
long.
but you take 20 minutes
Yeah.
to do that.
Yep.
Mhm.
And not necessarily at every
That's a
meeting.
great
'Cause
idea.
If we have a large agenda,
Mhm.
that's not gonna fit in there, but.
Right.
um,
But if you don't have a huge
but,
agenda, you
yeah.
fit in.
Because I dropped the ball last year and kept thinking, we got lots of time, we got lots of time. And then I'm like, ooh, we don't have lots of time. We got to get this done. So then we kind of crammed it into the last, 4 months of the year, but we got it done. So I think that's a really positive thing. And those trainings, I am also on the senior center board, and I have been training that board. Thankfully, we now have a new board member who has been long time on other boards, and I'm hoping he will take over the training of the board. But there's a lot of great information that it works for any board. So I have been using that for that. The bulk of our federation funds goes right back to the state library for the statewide contracts, OCLC library to go on shared catalog. I think it would be a dream for all of us if those things could be taken care of at the state level instead of sending us a check and then we send the money right back. That's kind of a dream of ours, that then we could use our state money for other things within our libraries. We also did the front facing bins, but we haven't had those long enough to know what kind of an effect that's had on our circulation because I just did it a couple months ago. But the excitement of the little kids has been great to see. It's made a really big difference that way. I think that's it. I can't remember anything else, but do you have any questions?
Thank you, Val.
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, this is Susan from Broad Valleys, and I'll do a very quick highlight. I want to echo what you said, Val. Essentially, the Federation libraries find that this money from Broad Valleys is critical in being able to pay for their share of the Montana Shared Catalog, which is a great tool for not only finding what's in another library, but how to borrow from another library. Montana Library to go. The ebooks are so valuable that it's difficult to even find the words to explain how valued they are by the people in all of our communities, but especially in the communities with more rural constituents, smaller libraries that just don't have the budget. So that's key. And then also the OCLC service, which is the cataloging service. That's also extremely important. In terms of the money, the trustees are, in Broad Valleys, we're sort of undergoing a little bit of a metamorphosis. We're gathering up information about our trustees. We have the president of our federation, I don't know if he's listening or not, but our library board chair, Stu Moore, is taking it on himself to reach out to other trustees. And we really hope that if the communication is not between the director and the trustee, but trustee to trustee, that peer pressure is going to bring people in, because one trustee can understand what the other trustees' concerns are. Another thing too, with the money that was used the past year, and that we plan to use some of it this year, trying to pay those travel expenses, that's $4,000, to bring as many trustees as we can to the Montana Library Association conference, the annual conference, and also to the Spring Federation meeting. We were fortunate this past spring in Butte. We had probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 trustees come. We want to grow that number. But it is important to think in terms of maybe if we can get our trustees to the state library convention. It's very important not only to speak to the trustees in your federation, but why not talk to the trustees from all over the state and try to get this bigger picture of really how important is my job? And the answer, as you said, Tammy, it's very important. It's very important. So we're excited to have the means to hopefully get people to our state library conference. And the other thing I'll say is that in the Federation, in our past spring meeting, something that was so helpful and so powerful that we're going to repeat it again this next year is using the Montana State University Local Government Center staff. They came to the spring meeting in Butte and they did a training all morning on the very basics, Robert's Rules of Orders. What are your responsibilities as a trustee? What are the legal responsibilities? How do you run a meeting? What does an agenda look like? All of those things that are very, very basic, but really important for people who haven't heard them before, and extremely important to all of us who just need a refresher. So I can't stress that enough, trying to get some outside training on that. And then finally, we also are using this model that you all are using, which is to have an hour and a half meeting, library board meeting, and to build that trustee training into the meeting.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Having training built into your meeting. Mhm.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any,
You want to hear from me again?
oh, I, yes, we would love to, Nancy.
Right. Okay, I'll just try to keep it sweet and short. So as I mentioned, we're having the regional meetings. But also I've already talked with Chris Goss to come to our meeting in April to talk about, how did Alyssa put it, the care and feeding of your director. And I said, what does that mean? She goes, well, it's what they need to do as trustees in order to support the director. So part of that is that training. And yeah, we are starting to implement that. I had one of my trustees at Chico here just the other day. And every class that she was in, I saw her write. I said, you're making more work for me, aren't you? And she said, yes, I am. So, it's just the training. We're trying to do a lot of training. And I just remembered my trustee, that's the hairdresser. She went to the local government center training.
So
and
she
found it-
did training.
She did training.
Right.
It's like, I just wasn't there because I was working.
Right.
So yeah, it's just, and we still have our trunks. Those are our trunks, not the trunks. Our book kits. So those are a big thing in our federation that we put money towards. And I guess we're just gonna keep going with more training. I want to do the local government center again in South Central. I'm just not sure where we're gonna be in the fall. So
Mhm.
I'll just kind of leave you at that.
All right, thank you. Are there any more comments from the federations? Anyone?
Just
any-
thank you for the good discussion. Thank you for the good input. I really,
Yes.
really appreciate it. I would go back to Tom's statement that the trustees at the bottom work for the community, and that's their, they have to see the big picture and they need to understand that. So
Mhm.
that's really important. Thank you so much for this. This was good. And is there always a session at the state library conference or, convention that for the trustees?
I think that would be a great
I mean,
idea.
I
Is
just
there?
assumed there
is
was,
there-
but
Not necessarily just for the trustees, except for they have their trustee interest group. And we try to encourage them to go to that. Now, I've been fortunate to have as many as 3 trustees attend MLA. with
Yeah.
me.
I think it would be great just to have a trustee gathering, or maybe not just a gathering, but
Training.
training just for trustees.
what do you think, Carmen?
Yes.
Rules of order.
This is Sarah from Miles City, and I have talked to the directors from the Sagebrush Federation, and we really, as everyone does, appreciate the value of kind of a hive mind or a round table just as directors. And we thought it would be a great idea at Federation as well to have a specific trustee time,
Yes.
and that they can have that training that they want that's going to be beneficial to them. And we can do our own as well, that's meaningful to directors. Like Blue Cloud software, trustees don't need to know how to do that, but we do.
Right.
And they could have local government budgeting.
Right. So during federation meetings,
Mhm.
that would be a great idea to have just a trustee training like in the afternoon and so that puts more on the federation leaders to plan, but perhaps 2 consultants to each of the, or a consultant and then someone else to come in.
We did
also.
that.
Mhm.
We did that at our roundup meeting.
Oh, great.
We had a dual track.
Oh.
The trustees, when did we have 24 there or something like that? We had quite a number of trustees
Oh, awesome.
for the whole federation. And then I took the directors and, winged it on library laws for the directors. And I think we did pretty good, but I heard a lot of good comments from the trustees.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
afterwards
sure.
about
Right.
Just being
That's
able to talk
great.
to each other and not
Yes.
have their,
Oh, and that's what I see. It would be wonderful. We try to get together just to visit, and we did a tour yesterday. We didn't have much time to visit, but I mean, it's just good to have those people together just to work and see common problems, common issues, common joy, whatever. There could be a lot of interaction and camaraderie between trustees. Carmen.
There are a lot of networking opportunities for library directors through the MLA, through the Wired, all that, where you can
Right.
just go out there and ask a question. There's nothing along those lines for trustees. So a trustee exchange would be great. So I actually don't know trustees from other libraries as a trustee of my library, because there's no network for us.
Mhm.
It would be great to have that,
Mhm.
just to ask questions. Because our library director has used it at our prompting, at the board's prompting, to ask questions that we as trustees find relevant at our library, and we have to ask the director to put it out to the other directors to get information from other libraries. We have no way to directly contact other trustees. We don't know them. Just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry. I did calculate by taking the average of 5 trustees per library, how many trustees would be available to each federation that could actually come. For Broad Valleys, it was 105. For Golden Plains, it's 30. For Pathfinder, it's 75 trustees. For Sagebrush, there are 50. South Central would have 90. Tamarack, 70. Nobody ever gets 100% participation, but I think the federations are slightly below 10% on average of how many trustees show up. So I don't know how many directors show up, whether you have 50%, 80% of your directors showing up to the federation meetings, but the trustees are clearly not there, so I think we need to work on them.
In our federation, we have really good participation, but we also tie our federation money to the participation at the meetings. We offer a Zoom option for those that can't make it, because realistically, you do have board members who work full-time and can't make it. Fortunately, I have my federation board member is retired, so it's not an issue for her, but we do require attendance at least one meeting per year in order to get your federation funding. And that has made a huge impact on attendance at our meetings. And I was told that wouldn't work, but it did work. So
Mhm.
money talks.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
For the last two meetings for South Central, we've had every library have somebody attend, whether by Zoom or in person. So not necessarily a trustee from every library, but somebody attended. So it does work to tie your money to it, because we use them for all for the same things.
So what is your opinion about tying training to the, what is it? ESLE, I've got my acronym all messed up. Thank you, Elsa. I'll call it Elsa. What is your perspective on that?
It's okay to tie it to that, but it's kind of like, yeah, so you want us to take this training, but what if we don't? So we don't get this award. If you tied it to our money, we'd be a little upset, but you'd probably get better attendance.
So if we had a cash award, along with the Elsa, no, don't, it's okay, commissioners. Tammy, don't take
know.
me out.
But yeah, maybe tie it to it. We're the ones that do the work to
Mhm.
fill out everything, and I make sure that my board sees like when I did my standards, they had to sign off on it
Right.
just before I turn it in and everything. So add it to it, but they're gonna go, okay, so now what? I have a very sassy board.
I would say then watch the video, or you really obviously are not that concerned about our library. Because if you would step in between, if watching 1 hour of video in the year is going to keep you,
Is that
Our
what it is?
library
Would that
from
would
getting
that be
award.
the standard,
I
1
don't know,
hour?
but if
It's
that would keep
3.
our library. from
It's
getting
3 hours.
That,
It's 3 hours.
yeah.
But,
over a year.
right.
If that would keep you from caring that our library got an award, I'm not sure you're the right person for this job.
And you're fired, but that
Okay.
doesn't work that way.
Well, the Elsa award is not really that old, is it? It's 4? I'm not sure how long we've had it.
It's changed. I mean, the ELSA as a concept has existed for probably, oh, Jenny, you might have to help me. It's like 10 or 15 years, but we redid it about 4 years ago because it used to be tied to the excellent public library standards, but we were giving the award to other types of libraries and they couldn't meet those standards.
Right. And so when it changed, my board just kind of went, what's the difference here? So
We had a requirement in it that you had to reach a new group of people every year. And after 15 years in a small town, who's that new group of people? Oh, I think we have one gentleman who has a beard past his chin. Okay, that could be, you get extremely silly trying to find a new group to service after 15 years that you haven't before. And so it was like, okay, we need to make this more relevant.
Right. Okay, well, we do need to move on. Oh, no, don't shut up. You're fine. We do need to go ahead and accept a motion to accept the fiscal year 2024 Federation report. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Brian seconded. Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the fiscal year 2024 Federation report. Is there any further discussion?
Thank you
It-
to all the Federation coordinators for traveling here to talk to us.
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much. It was a great discussion. I wish we had had more time. I mean, this was a very good discussion. Is there any public comment? No public comment, seeing none. We will now vote on the motion, which is to accept the fiscal year 2024 Federation report as they are. May I hear? Sorry, may I hear aye if you approve?
I with gratitude.
Are there any no's? As there are none, we will accept the fiscal year 2024 Federation report. Okay, thank you, ladies, very much. Too bad, I mean, this would be great for you to come back another time if you have the time. Well, not until next year, but maybe we could do, in June. Oh, in June they're coming. Great. Let's plan a little longer time to discuss issues. And I mean, this was a great discussion. Great discussion. Thank you very much. Okay, all right, well, we'll now go on to, so we had a little issue about the $4,000. I would like to have a motion concerning the $4,000 and using it as trustee funding. Is there anyone that would like to make that motion?
I think we had that motion.
No, we didn't. Carmen,
I move that we permanently assign $4,000 a year per federation to be used either for trustee travel to in-person meetings or trustee training in perpetuity.
we're adding the year permanently.
Second.
Okay,
I'm gonna share it and then we can make sure I have it correct. Give me one moment.
okay, it has been moved and seconded that we permanently assign $4,000 a year per federation to be used for,
Be
Trustee.
used for trustee travel to in-person meetings or other trustee training,
or trustee training,
or it's just
Or
or
just
trustee training,
just trustee training.
Yeah. for travel or for training.
In perpetuity.
Yes, permanently, yes. Okay, it is,
Or
is,
does it need to, can we discuss the motion, please?
just a second, yes. Is there any or is there any discussion?
Can we say in perpetuity or
No.
do we need to
We-
say until until rescinded by the State Library Commission?
Or just leave it out.
I just
Leave it
think
out.
permanently
Then
because
permanently.
future boards can change any.
Right, right.
Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion? If not, is there any public discussion?
I think we need a second.
Oh, she
I
did.
second.
She did already, yeah. Okay, is there any?
No public online.
Okay, as seen as there is none, all those in favor of the motion to permanently assign $4,000 a year per federation to be used for trustee travel or in-person training or meetings or trustee training. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, sorry. All opposed say no. Okay, it has been approved by voice vote that we permanently assign $4,000 a year per federation to be used for trustee travel to in-person meetings or trustee training. And the motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
I have a question that
Yes.
occurred to me after we voted.
Okay.
Do we need to amend the motion to say trustee travel to in-person federation meetings? What is our intention?
Aren't it?
I don't think we need to say that because if we establish a trustee workshop at the State Library Convention, it would be acceptable there.
Right.
Mhm,
Library Association?
mhm.
Okay.
I think we should leave that open.
Yeah, because they can travel too.
Bearing, Madam Chair,
Yes.
we have to make it clear that we can't establish anything at the Montana Library Association. That's completely their bailiwick.
Right.
We cannot force the MLA to have trustee training.
No. Is that what you're saying, Tom?
Precisely.
Yes, I
That
know
we
that.
cannot force MLA to have?
So if we
trustee-
want the money to be for trustee training, do we need to say in-person federation meetings?
No. We
The
can't
trustee,
ask the,
but are we funding the trustees to travel to the Zoology Association? Or whatever meeting they choose to go to, the Beef Growers Association meeting.
But, okay. Let's see.
Can we put
Is
the
this
motion up on the screen
Just a
again?
second, is this federation, is it just federation or is it trustee training where they could possibly go to a county meeting where they could get trustee training? I mean,
If you could come with me, that would be great.
oh, okay. Okay, I'm not-
Maybe it just needs to be stated that it's in-person travel to a meeting for library board training. Not any other training, but board training, or do we need to specify that? I don't know. Would anybody, use it for something that's not what we're trying to incentivize?
my basic principle in governing is not to make rules for the exception, because once you start doing that, you end up with serious numbers of of big papers and unnecessary. So I'd keep it simple and see how it goes. And if people abuse it, we can always go back and clarify. But if we start trying to make an exception that could happen that was wrong, I
think that makes sense.
okay.
I'm just a very suspicious. person.
Well, if you had said to me that you were gonna use that 4,000 for somebody to buy a TV so they could watch I'd probably say, wait a minute, that's not a good idea. And then when I find out it's so they could watch the training, it's like, duh. Yes, that's a good reason.
Right, okay, so we'll just leave it as is. Okay, let's go on now to our discussion items. First up is, oh, sorry, excuse me, we do need a short break. It's 10:37. We'll come back by 10:45.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think that was very well spent.
Of discussion items.
We need government IDs for the whole council.
Okay, first up, we're going to discuss the state library and evaluation process, follow-up and goal setting. The evaluation committee met and discussed the form which was used during the last evaluation, and we considered the fact that it is part of the state talents evaluation. This is used across our state government. We decided on continuing using that form and having the state librarian consider each of the points under each of the standards and give a written response on how she has met that point and or by giving an example of how she accomplished this standard. And we thought that that may be sufficient. And we're bringing it back to the commission to make sure that, or to see what your input would be. It was underneath, if you had a chance to look, did we have it?
It's linked on the agenda.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
it's considered.
So if you looked at it, it is still the same form, but what we asked was for her to take a look at it, not pertaining so much towards her staff, but her interaction with us and staff and like contract people all the way around.
So I looked at it, and I just crossed out the things that struck me as something I couldn't speak to because it's geared towards staff. And I just crossed that out. So like the first one, trust. I changed it to say displays high integrity, honesty, and is trusted by members of the State Library Commission, period. The work group is not, it's not us. And I don't know who we would look at as far as stakeholders go. If we're just to talk about us evaluating Jenny, there's a lot of stuff in here that I think applies to staff.
Right. It also like the stakeholders, we don't know so much of how the stakeholders see Jenny and her performance. I think that would give us another perspective if she was giving an example of how she interacted or an example of working with the stakeholders. Of course, it would just be her opinion of the situation, but that could give us an idea too, not just, and it wouldn't just be from staff, but, and I understand your point. I understand putting in the word commission in there.
I was just reading this and looking at what can I actually speak to?
Mhm.
I really can't speak to your interactions with your staff very well. So that's where I was going with trying to edit it if we want to use this. I don't know if that's the right way, or I don't know if that's what you wanted.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I too, although I can't bring it up now, it won't let me, but, I was very unhappy with this. I know this is the one that we get Board of Talents or whatever, but I agreed with, Carmen that I felt like it didn't really apply to us, but I, would ask the, Personnel Committee to make sure that you rewrite this so it applies mainly to the relationship between the head librarian and us. And then I also still made copies again of the leadership evaluation that I put together, which does not have to be used in its still form. I'm passing it around to everybody, but add that in somehow. And so I'm just asking that the Personnel Committee realize that we are going to have to create our own document. We can't just use the state's. We have to meet our own needs. And so I would ask that they at least look at that and incorporate it within the idea of what questions we're looking at. And I also would ask that we take Carmen's suggestions of what she edited and ask the Personnel Committee to use that. But I think we absolutely have to earn work in this, and we've talked about it probably at 4 meetings and not really come down with a form.
I know it's been a difficult.
But I think it can be easier if whatever the Personnel Committee pull all these materials together. There's only 3 of you, put together what you want. We've asked people to give you things. I know Brian had an opinion about making it less specific and more general questions. And I'm sure he gave you something that reflect that. Whatever you get from the Personnel Committee, I would encourage you to put something together you feel will work, use that, and then we'll see if it did. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll make this change next year. But I think we have to move on now for fairness to Jenny and just put it together and do it. But I'm not comfortable with using the state one alone. It's not relevant.
So just to be clear, this evaluation is used across all state agencies. Is that correct, Jen?
That's correct.
So I don't understand why we need something unique that is used elsewhere in all state agencies. So I'm quite okay with continuing to use this.
I don't think, Brian, the problem was the document. What the problem with the document is we are responsible to evaluate Jenny. And part of that is how she gets along with her staff. So she needs to evaluate them and share that with us. But the document we have last year, we only had the response of how Jenny deals with her staff, nothing to address how Jenny deals with us and we with her.
So how is that different from any other board or commission in state government?
I don't know. They will have to address it themselves. I can tell you that, for example, a superintendent of schools evaluation with his staff is totally different than ours with the superintendent if we're trustees. It's not the same. And so we needed something that addressed how do we deal with Jenny? How does Jenny deal with us? And this did not. It can be doctored too. And I'm just asking the evaluation team to do that.
I guess we did give the instruction to Jenny. We discussed this, that we wanted her to look.
We did.
Her interaction with the commission, even using this. And did you understand that?
I did. It is my understanding, and we've had this communication from the Department of Administration, that the directive from the governor's office is that the state and state boards and commissions use the state system. I don't know if that means they're going to tweak it in some way, but that's the directive that we've been given.
I think this form could work. I just
That's
will.
what we thought.
I just will leave out part of these questions that I truly cannot answer. Like the last one is encourages development, effectively communicates performance expectations and issues with staff, provides guidance and opportunities to staff members for their development and advancement. I cannot have an opinion on that. I know nothing about it. So I can see what Tammy says, that not everything on this form can honestly be answered by a commissioner because we don't have a clue.
Mhm.
But I just, for myself personally, crossed out the parts in each question that I cannot answer, and I can answer the rest of it. And it makes things a lot shorter and a lot simpler, actually. I'll be happy to share what I crossed out with the committee. I also don't see a problem of adding any of these questions if the committee thinks they're valuable, the ones that are Tammy's suggestions. So I think the form can be made to work.
Mhm.
And if we're running out of time, let's use it this time as is and edit it for next time.
And it's better than last year. Right? Because last year we didn't have. We didn't.
Use this last year.
Yeah, but we didn't have any areas where we could discuss how we
No,
dealt with
and
Jenny.
we just basically had the staffs.
All we have was the
And what
staff.
she is going to do now is she's going to go through and give examples of all of these different how she possibly has displayed high integrity and honesty, how she is trusted by members of her work group. We're the work group. Okay. And then maintain strategic orientation. She's considering us in the question, in the measure. Takes initiative. Okay, does she take initiative to say, hey, this is going on, talking to us, analyzes issues, solves problems? Does she try to solve issues that are between her and us? Does she try to solve those problems? Identifies trends, potential
Right.
problems. How does she do that?
But
And
we're
she's going
filling
to
it out on
No,
her.
well, no, she's providing information. No, the personnel committee is, and she's providing these answers to us.
And then does each commissioner fill this out as well?
Yes,
And
and
give
we
it to-
will discuss that at the meeting. We listen to what the personnel committee, but we do not give up our rights to discuss our
Oh, well, no.
evaluation
No,
with Jenny.
no, and that's
right.
we discussed that at her evaluation, but previously we have never had each of the commissioners fill out a form about her. And Tom, do you believe, I don't know if that was our intention. Was it our intention to have each of the commissioners fill out an evaluation form and for us to look at those?
Madam Chair, that's my understanding, that each
Okay,
commissioner would
yes.
get a copy of this
Okay.
and write in the supporting
was mine.
comments area if they have any knowledge to add to it.
Okay.
I mean, from my
Their input.
very limited small business experience, you ask each employee to answer the exact same questions that you answer for each employee.
Okay.
And then you find out where you don't agree, where the employee maybe sees themselves as doing great and you're like, well, here are the things from my point of view, you need to improve, and vice versa.
Mhm.
So everybody evaluates both
Okay,
ways.
so what we'll have to do is you'll have to send me your document so that
Yes.
Peggy and Tom and I can get together as the personnel committee. I will pass those on to them, and so that we can read everything, and then we'll put everything together and fill out one. It now, not each of them will go to Jenny, but we'll
No.
fill out one for her with a compilation of all of the
Yes.
information.
And when we discuss, we'll discuss all of it.
Right.
Is Elsie still on the line? I didn't know she had to drop out. No, okay.
Do need to get going on
I'm
this, so,
here. I'm here.
okay,
Sorry,
Elsie's
Elsie,
here.
you're at the top. I didn't see it. Yeah.
Madam Chair, may I ask Elsie a question?
yes.
Okay, Elsie, when it comes for your Board of Education to evaluate you, and there's a personnel committee that does, like we're talking about, when you meet with the Board of Education, do they all share with you and you evaluate as all of them? How does that work?
Thank you. As an elected, I don't have anyone who does any evaluation of myself. The voters do. I know. Thank you, Tom. You're just kind of smiling at that one, which if you read what's in the paper, there's a lot of fun stuff that's happening on that evaluation. But it's outside of the purview here. It is in public schools, though, when the board evaluates the superintendent for either purposes of amending compensation, changing any kind of a work plan, or hiring or dispensing of any kind of whatever might happen. But in my mind, to make it short, no, there is nothing here in my office.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
so what I believe, and last year we did this, everyone during the evaluation process in executive session, everyone was able to say, and not, and we're not taking that away from anyone.
We just didn't have a device that allowed for us to give input like that.
Got
It was only the one
Right.
from staff.
Exactly.
Now we will.
Yes.
My recollection is last year, Tom called me and he asked me these questions verbally and I gave him input.
Yes, and I
So I
did the same thing with, you're right, yes. I did the same thing and asked people.
But the questions were not with how we deal with it.
Right. Well, you kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, we discussed it.
So this year, we're just doing that same thing, but in an executive session with. all
No,
of us?
you will fill out this
Okay.
form and get it sent to me.
Okay.
And then I'll send it on to Peggy and Tom, and then we will get together via Zoom, just us, and we will discuss and put together an evaluation and then share it with you and then send it on to Jenny. And
Thank
we
you.
can make changes, etc. before we send it on.
Okay. Do you need any action on that or?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't believe we do. Okay, all right. Thank you. So we'll do that. Okay, next we go on to the young adult collections in Montana libraries. The MSL staff, when visiting the federations, did spur on conversations concerning this topic. I heard, there were different questions, but I would like to know, was there any consensus? What were the questions asked to initiate the conversations about the YA collections? I know that my interest includes the ages that are considered young adult in libraries around the state. Did you have any other?
Madam Chair, I'd like to just share some of the research I did on this. The ALA formally established the YA in 1957, and they split off their Association of Young People Librarians that was from 41. And it's been going through this process. In the beginning, it was to refer to 12 to 18. That was the initial beginning. Now, according to the ALA, young adult has expanded to include those as young as 10 and from the 1990s as old as 25. So the ALA said that it's covering from that whole age. The Library of Congress still defines young adult literature as ages 12 through high school. The Writers Association of America said it's a very frustrating for them to figure out how to, their writers, and they had quite a bit on this, but they figure that a young adult would range from 18 to 25. So the writers are really struggling. And then Publishers Weekly, I thought was very interesting. The newest Publishers Weekly that dealt with this said, since young adults emerged in the 1960s, distinct place where 12 to 18-year-olds, that was the beginning, 12 to 18. But according to the January 2023 World's Rated Statistics, 51% of the YA books are purchased. This isn't in libraries, but purchased by people between the ages of 30 to 44. And 78% of those buyers said that they intended to read the books themselves. So they weren't buy them. So I don't know if that's a dumbing down of people. I don't know if they find the kids' books stimulating. I don't know. In recent years, librarians report that more middle grade readers, 8 to 12, are reading up to 8 to 12 are reading up to YA books. And 12 to 35-year-olds are reading the same book. And the Publishers Weekly said, how does that work? That's not very appropriate, is what they said. From 12 to 35 for the same session. So it's a mess, is what I'm saying. And I'm not sure if it is for our librarians, but when parents take their kids to the library, when they see the YA, they assume those are appropriate. Generally, I think from 12 or 13 to 18. I don't think they have any idea that 10-year-olds are reading these books or that they're for 25-year-old.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I attended the Broad Valleys,
Hello, sir.
Broad Valleys Federation meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there was a robust discussion on this issue. And I was struck by the fact that none of the libraries really refer to these collections as YA collections. They call them teen collections. And so that's who they are intended to serve, our teens. And it was made pretty explicit at one point that it's not preteens. So we're talking about junior high and high school kids.
I think
That's
we
what
intend that.
that's what we're talking about. And the other thing that I was struck by is that what was important was the spaces the spaces were more important than the collections. Having a space for these kids that are no longer children, but are not yet adults. And it is having safe spaces where they can engage in various activities, clubs, tutoring. They can keep transient people out of these spaces, places where these kids have a safe place to go. So I'm not quite sure why we're having this discussion. I think that the libraries are doing a very good job. The explicit question was asked about were any of their teen titles challenged, and there was only one library that had received a complaint, and it was very oblique. It was somebody had actually mentioned something to a trustee, but there was not a formal complaint. So there were no formal complaints about any of the items in these collections. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is that we are trying to discuss here. I think that I got the sense, at least based on this one meeting, that the libraries are pretty satisfied with how things are going, and that the teens themselves are really happy. They value these spaces, and it's important to them. So I think it's an important service that libraries are providing for these people.
I did attend the Pathfinder Federation meeting, and I gathered the same, Brian. There was one librarian who said that their teen, which goes right back to something that you mentioned, their young adult section is mostly used by adults, and their young adults, their teens, or not young adults, but their teens that do come in use the adult section to check out classics for school. Okay, so they're not checking out the regular read, any book to read, except maybe a classic. And that's the way it was in their library. And there was a variety of different usages across the board, but what Brian said about the space is and I stopped in Lincoln, and they have a young adult space that they use, and they called it their teen, but I mean, young adult teen, it crossed over. And that's where their teens, when they do have kids come over, that's where they like to go and sit. So that was, kind of what they agreed with your Broad Valley people also. But
Madam Chair,
yes,
I'd like to answer Brian's question.
okay,
I think it's a very valid question. Why are we even discussing it? My concern was if, like with my research, if the ALA is deciding that the YA can be 10 through 25, that is not acceptable because a book that a 13-year-old would read is not the same as appropriate for 24, 25. And when parents trust us, I think it's like we make fun of the movie industry, but at least they have a pretty well established why they rate things the way they do. They might be very arbitrary. A PG movie can have the F word once. If it's twice, it's R. I don't know how they define violence, but they do. But I think if we have, Bozeman, I was struck by their beautiful YA section. It's very, very good and very expansive, and someplace I'd want to go as a teenager, very much so. But if parents are letting their kids go in there and get read the YA section, I think they need to, nothing we are doing to control anything. That's not our job. Our job is to give information to the community and to the parents. So if we tell them that a YA book is appropriate for 10 to 25, that's not, they need to know that. If the librarians in Montana pretty much assume, and I felt that way too with the meeting I listened into, I missed part of it because of driving. If the librarians are assuming it's 13 to 18, so are the parents, no problem. If there are people in Montana who think that it's appropriate to have books that would be for 25 and 26-year-olds in the YA, that's the problem. Parents need to at least know. All we need to do is tell parents. So if we're saying that it is indeed 13 to 18, which is what it was initially established for, no problem. We don't even have to worry about telling parents that, because that's what they're thinking. That's the way it was established. But if it's slowly creeping down and up, that's a concern. A book a 26-year-old would read is not necessarily appropriate for a 10-year-old.
It's interesting to think about if it is for 12 or 13 to 18, why it shouldn't just be called a teen book and why we need the young adult designation. It is also interesting, the parts of the book genderqueer that cause so much trouble. I asked a local newspaper if they could publish the relevant images so the public could see what's being discussed. And the gentleman said, no, these pages cannot be published in a Montana newspaper. And I'm assuming the reason why there's a legal limit to what a newspaper can publish is the protection of children. So then my brain goes, why would we put such content in front of teens on purpose in a so-called YA collection? So that's where my concern is. Should we as the state library give a recommendation of how to deal with a book that comes from the publisher designated as YA? Sadly, if you want to make a distinction what's appropriate for a minor and what is not appropriate for a minor, you would probably have to evaluate a YA designated book yourself if the publishers think it's appropriate for up to age 25. And then I'm trying to think of, is there a standard that we can take over from some other industry and recommend? And the only one I know about is what you can and cannot publish in the newspaper. There is some legal standard for that. And I'm just assuming that the purpose is protection of minors, because a newspaper can be laying around anywhere and be seen by anybody. And our libraries the whole collection is open to any age to go around and browse. But we do represent something to parents when we create a children's and a teen and an adult designation, So what is the responsibility of a public library to be clear about what's in those sections? Are we representing to the public that if it's called a teen section, there's some objective standard, like with the movies, this is or this is not in this book. And it's about empowering the parents to make choices for their kids. I think we all agree that the librarians are not in charge of telling a child or a family what they can or cannot read. It's up to the parent. So if the parent thinks that their child is ready for mature content, let them loose in the adult section. That's the family's choice. Equally, though, if you have a parent who says, my child is immature, I don't want them seeing anything sexual, don't care which kind of sexuality it is or which kind of sexual orientation. I want to protect my child from that until they're 17, 18, whatever it is. I think the library has a duty to empower that parent to steer their child to the collection that they, as a parent, are familiar with. So this YA designation causes a problem if the span is 10 to 25. And that's where I see an issue. Do we have any kind of recommendation that we could make to the public libraries to empower parents in this fashion when they walk in? It is a completely different question from having a teen space. I think that's a trend that really has benefited libraries, to have a little kid space and a teen space, so the teens don't have to hang out in the little kids section because they don't want to. But the collection is where the issue is, because that's where parents can make a choice, can make their own choice for their own children. And if we're not clear about how we divide the books into collections, then those parents cannot make an empowered choice. And I think that's why I was in favor of discussing this. Do we want to make some kind of recommendation? Do we have any idea of best practices? Can we recommend a independent, objective legal standard to help libraries keep parents informed and empowered?
Madam Chair, could we ask Tracy, after meeting with all the Federation groups, because we did ask them to discuss how they viewed this. Did you feel like, can I ask her, would she?
Dear, is she there?
She's here,
Oh, I
but
see. Well, there
did
she is.
most of the federations
And
agree
Court.
that it was 13 to 18? Was that kind of the record? I mean, like, are they already doing that? Because Publishers Weekly saying, well, it goes from 12 to 35. That's, oh, if the publishers are viewing that and they're sending out the books,
Okay. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, most of the libraries, actually probably all of the libraries, it's that 13 to 18. And I would say, Carmen, a lot of the librarians in Montana, I haven't talked to all 89 of them, but they analyze the books when they come in. And if they order a book that in review seemed like it fell in the teen collection, and they look at that book and they're like, that is not a teen item, that needs to go in the adult section, or that needs to go in the kids section, because sometimes it can go either way, they move it. And then they provide customized reader's advisory for parents and kids. So if a teenager is like, I need something to read, they work with that teenager to steer them, because most of their communities are tiny, so they know everyone. So they know where parents or grandparents fall, and they're able to guide them. That's a lot harder in our larger public libraries, but even there, the really great teen librarians and children's librarians, when I've seen them in action, they are clearly trying to focus on the love of reading and be respectful of people and their needs and the development of that individual standing in front of them. Librarians don't always follow. In fact, they rarely follow everything the American Library Association recommends. I just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Tracy. Are there any other comments?
So does a book come from the publisher designated as YA?
Sometimes, but what will happen is when they're reading review sources, it may say that this is great for teens. And so they'll order it for teens, but they will move it if they themselves judge that their teens, it's not appropriate for them. Also, in a lot of our smaller libraries, they have just juvenile and adult. They try to have space for teens, but they don't actually have teen collections. So in our smaller libraries, you may not even have a teen collection.
So how does that work when I look it up in the online catalog? Is it, I mean, because we do the shared catalog, so how do you catalog that?
So you would just, in those small libraries, they'll judge the book when it comes in. And then they'll catalog it either as going in. So they'll use these things called item categories, and that's what tells the system where the book lives on the shelf. And they'll choose adult, or they'll choose juvenile or teen or YA if they have that. And I think librarians use teens, but I think the reason that they were trying young adult is just to recognize a lot of teens are trying to figure out adulthood and don't like being called kids. So they were trying to find something that was respectful. What did come out of this that was very great for us, and we talked about in Sagebrush and Golden Plains, was a desire to bring about a love of reading for this age and serving them better. So it really did spark some great conversations about how to inspire teens to come use the library and love reading again.
Just, I think a question that Carmen may have been asking, just to clarify, libraries use what they call local holdings. So just because not every library has to put books in the same place, so different libraries could decide to put this in a teen collection or an adult collection. So individual libraries, even though they share the catalog, they have their own locations for those items.
So there's a big difference between browsing online and browsing in person.
There is, if you're browsing Kalispell Library, you're gonna find different things than if you were browsing Bozeman. And the locations would be different, or might be different.
Okay.
So the call numbers could be unique at each of those. The one library might use Dewey. At Bozeman Public Library, their fiction, they just use the author's last name in their fiction, so they don't use Dewey for their fiction.
So in summary of this item, because I did ask to put it on the agenda, I guess I feel more comfortable now than I did when I initially asked for it. Again, I really appreciate that most of our libraries are basically what the Library of Congress says, and that is 12 or 13 through high school. That's an YA, and not the ALL who says 10 through 25, or the publishers who say 12 through 35. I think parents should be very comfortable that our libraries are appropriately putting books where they need to be, recognizing that YA technically is in the realm of 12 to high school, 13 to high school. And I think if that's a statement we've heard from the people here today, that's a statement that I'm very comfortable with. And I thank you for checking and doing, into that, because you can't get trust back once you violate it. So if the parents are trusting us on that, I think we need to honor that. And I feel like what I'm hearing from all of you who are involved on the ground, that we're pretty much sticking with the Library of Congress definition of 13 through 18. Would you say that, Carmen? You feel that that was what we heard today?
Yeah, and I think the concept that librarians have the judgment and use it, that's great to hear.
All right. Is there any more discussion about the YA in the Montana libraries? Okay, if not, we'll go on to the freedom to read statement that we have. Would you like me to read it?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom?
I move to table this agenda item either indefinitely or to a specific time, but I guess my motion would be to table it indefinitely.
I would not second that if it's indefinitely. I would if it was at a future meeting.
I'll change the motion to a future meeting, but unspecified.
Okay,
Madam
I
Chair.
would second a motion to table the freedom to read statement till a future meeting.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded that we postpone. Do I need to do this? Do I need to even do this? And it's not an action, it's not an action.
It's not an action, so you can.
So
just
we
say-
can just say that we're going to postpone it to another meeting, at a later date. If that's all right with everyone, it's, okay, all right, we will do that then. Next, we have the role of the public library as a discussion item. At our financial committee meeting, we had a great discussion of reading books and programs brought into libraries to increase usership. I also heard that there was further discussion at other federation meetings, and I'd like to open the floor for discussion. Carmen?
I've been thinking about this because we're locally about to do a news or update our strategic plan. And you know, if you're envisioning this kind of as a pyramid, at the bottom you have what your staff is doing every day. And somehow it all needs to point to the same top of the pyramid, to some kind of goal, to your mission statement, and to considering what the job of your library is in your community. And at the finance committee meeting, we were talking about coming up with a way to measure impact and relevance of your library. And one thing that came up is physical bodies in the library. And then that begs the question, is that good enough? Are you turning your library into the YMCA, and are you okay with that? Or do you want to aspire what I think is harder, but possibly more worthwhile, which is to encourage more reading? And if you just measure people walking in, like we do in Kalispell, you get the staff going out for a smoke and coming back in, you get the person that comes in 5 times, you get, so it's an iffy measure, and it measures who walks in, whether they actually checked anything out or even have a library card. You cannot tell from those numbers. So the discussion came out of that. And I very much wanted input from the commissioners and the public, what people see as truly, if you had to bring it down to one most important job that you do as a library, the most important thing you provide to your community, what is that? Because we've also had mission creep, where we're now trying to be 50 different things to 50 different groups. And eventually we're gonna do 50 things and none of it very well. So if we want to be more specific, what is the one most important thing that we as a library, public library, should be doing in our town or county? So I just wanted input.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Tom?
Yeah, we talked about the decline in visitation around the state. Nationally, over a decade, the decline has been 50%. In Montana, it's not quite that severe, but it's in the, don't have the number right off the top of my head, but about 40-ish. And in some specific libraries, it's way more severe than that, and some less. If I were on a library board in a town that had a severe drop-off in visitation, that would be my first number to consult before renovations or additions or building new libraries in that town. So bodies through the door is very useful for capital planning, I would say. You can use numbers like circulation, because the e-circulation is up. So that softens some of the personal visitation numbers, but not a lot. One proposal has been to measure impact by active cardholders per capita. That's valid. I think a composite of some of these measures is really important for trustees and taxpayers and those of us who love libraries and reading and learning to know about and to countenance. Directly to the question that is asked by the discussion item, what is the role of a public library? If readership of physical items and attendance at the library is down this severe as it is, to me, the role of the library is to provide, and very far down the line, to inspire. The inspiration to read and inquire and learn and question and grow intellectually has to come from the person and from that person's upbringing in the home. And there are other factors, peer influence, school influence, adult mentors. Those are all good. But the library is to provide those resources, the books, the magazines, the e-resources. And so that's my short answer to the question of what the role of the public libraries is. But it has to be put in the context of severely slipping attendance and usage of libraries over the last decade, and probably attributable in large degree to the rise of social media, maybe as documented by Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Anxious Generation. And he tracks it, he parallels it with mental health issues, especially among the young. The introduction of the smartphone, to be specific, alternative modes of learning and entertainment being provided outside the walls of our hallowed libraries. That's my input. Thanks.
We have our meeting at 11:30.
Do we?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just.
Madam Chair. I really wanted to thank Carmen for bringing this up because it made me do a lot of thinking. I know the Bozeman Library is absolutely breathtaking, and they have a lot of activities in there and many, many things. I've had people say to me, has the library become technically a community center? Has it become a homeless shelter? Has it become a food bank? Has it become a dance program? Has it become an exercise program? You know, all these things. And we have to know when we're funding. I think that's up to the individual library. Bozeman wants to do all those things. Their library proves it. That's great. But in a small town, is it the community center? That's what I'm wondering. Is it technically the library sort of a community center? I know we want people to go there to read. And if we sort of emphasize everything but books and getting information, pretty soon I think we have ourselves, I'm saying as a culture, not me, all of us as a culture, we've undermined reading. We've said a library in itself is not important. You can come in for all these wonderful other things that are equally or more so. I don't want to see that happen. I know many seniors use it. Everybody in my book club, half of them are on the book list for the library to get their book. I know seniors use it for the computers to stay up with their Medicare, to try to get help with all their needs. I don't know what the answer to that is. Again, maybe in a small town, it is seen as more a community center. I guess it's up to but I guess I would put out this warning. If we want people to read, and that's our primary need, because these wonderful Federation people the other day talked, how do we bring the joy of reading back? Where do we get people excited to read? We need to emphasize the reading as libraries. We can't say, oh, books aren't worthy to come in here and use, so we're going to offer all this other stuff, because no, the books are a beautiful, wonderful adventure. Come into the books. Come read.
This makes me again think about the visitation numbers, because it seems to me that maybe my library has replaced the goal of making people come in to read with just making people come in. And that in and of itself maybe is not good enough if you want to still foster reading. I don't know.
Well, thanks for making me think.
Is there public comment? Susan?
Thank you. I don't know which chair.
Go ahead, go ahead, pick any. Just turn the microphone on so we can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, this is Susan Broad Valley Bozeman, and Tammy, thanks so much for your comments. And, Carmen, I appreciate your comments also. I think what we work very hard to continue at the Bozeman Library is the understanding that it's not one or the other. What we say to people is it's books and. And so, for example, and Tom, I'm calling on you because I know you love our 3D printer. A lot of these things that we provide, whether it's a yoga class, whether it's baby story time, which earlier this week had 111 people just for one story time session. Getting people into the library is the first step. And what we find is they may come in to use the embroidery machine, but they're going to leave with a book. So what we have done, what we found, is that the more you widen that net, the more people you reach. You actually bring in new audience of readers. They become readers. And also, Tammy, one thing that I think is just wonderful that we've noticed, especially since we kind of brightened up our second floor, is any given afternoon, I can walk around that second floor, which is the adult nonfiction and the computers. Almost every table's full, almost every chair is full, the reading room is full. And I would say 80% of those people are in their 20s. So we see people of all ages, and what they are doing is reading. And then the other thing too, that my son and I had this discussion when he was 13, many years ago. He said, "I'm not a reader." I said, "Of course you are. You're reading magazines. You're reading your computer. You are reading. You don't happen to have a print book in your hand, but you are reading." So, Carmen, I think your question is excellent. And I think the mission statement is key. I think you really nailed it. We worked really hard to come up with a mission statement in Bozeman that is basically the library provides opportunities for curiosity and exploration and connection. So to some extent, that's why having a lot of different services and programs available is actually helpful in turning people into readers because you're sparking that curiosity.
That's great. And I really like the idea provides opportunity. That's a key idea. Now, do you have a way to measure whether a certain activity ends up bringing you readers or ends up turning those people not just towards the sewing machine, but they will then see the books too and go there? Do you have a way to measure that? Is it observation because you get to know the faces that come in? Or...
It's largely observation. And then we look at things like, for example, our book club kits, how much those check out, and they are checked out constantly. And those are wonderful because, that allows your local group not to have to go out and spend $28 for a new bestseller. So we see people reading in all those different formats. Our circulation numbers, and I don't have that number with me, so I can get that for you if you want. Our attendance numbers, I totally understand Tom's comment about declining library attendance. That's not the case in Bozeman. And we average 1,000 to 1,200 people a day. So when we see those numbers and we have people coming in angry because there's no place to park, then that makes us look at our whole realm of services. And also, Carmen, too, I think one thing that's really helpful is to finally, for us to understand people learn in different ways. Some people immediately are visual, they're going to read. Some people are doers. That's the connection. I have had so many men in their 40s, 50s, 60s come to me and say, man, I love that Glowforge at the library. You wouldn't believe what I made my wife for her birthday, kind of thing. But then while they're there, we have resources to show them what else we're offering. And to also, we keep the bestseller books and all of our new fiction in that area. So as they walk in, they see that. So part of it is just how you lay out your library. Yeah.
I think looking at a successful library for a model is the way to go probably for Kalispell.
Thank you. I have a comment from Elsie from the Superintendent Artson. Please share with all that I am attending to OPI business this afternoon. I appreciate this meeting as good conversation is occurring for the betterment of our patrons.
Thanks, Elsie. Elsie,
That was Superintendent.
she had to leave. Yes. Thank you, Elsie.
Since I brought up the topic, if there's no other input, I think I got a good impression of how this idea, what other people think about it, what is the role of your library. So thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you for the discussion. And yes, it was a good a good view of what the role of the library can be and is in Montana. Okay, Bryce, are you ready? We're a little early, but Bryce Maxwell is here. He's going to have a little, I had show and tell, and my husband threw my show and tell away. My show and tell was a jar. My granddaughters found a bat in our yard. It was dead, crispy crittered. I have a picture of it. They told one of my daughters who went out with gloves, and they all had gloves on. They all went to pick up this bat. Only my daughter touched it because the little girls were freaked out, but they all had their gloves on. I wish I had a picture of that. And they collected it. Bryce has tremendous bat research. Are these for us to keep?
Absolutely.
Oh, how exciting. And he has got Bats of Montana posters for us. How wonderful.
I would like to thank JR for throwing out your bat.
I was very disappointed. He said, you didn't tell me that was your show and tell. Go ahead, Bryce.
Well, you did the right thing. About 5 to 10% of bats carry rabies. So it's always,
Even when they're dead?
even when they're dead, yeah, you don't want to mess with them.
It was in a mason jar with a
But
lid
here's
on
an
it.
interesting fact. Skunks, about 40% of them carry rabies. So don't go picking up skunks.
Oh my gosh. So when you have, I'm sorry but so when you have a dead skunk and your dog goes and rolls in it, they potentially could,
Yeah, that's something you don't
okay,
want
so
to
it
do.
needs to be gotten. Okay, I will
Yep.
remember that.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, today I wanted to just give you a reminder of what the Montana Natural Heritage Program does in general, how we deliver information, and then we'll talk about bat research that we've done over the past few years and what we have going on right now, and some highlights of that, because there's a lot there to unravel. If I could have the next slide. I'll start by just saying, as a reminder, why we have a natural heritage program. It's so that the 1985 or 1983 legislature, that is, wanted to have a common set of information that could be used for all agencies, all of the public, federal, state, all levels, to inform species and habitat management decisions, and to fill the information needs of environmental review, permitting, and planning efforts. And there are hundreds of those that our information fills on a daily basis. More recently, we've been informing disaster. FEMA uses our data a lot, and invasive species responses. And all of that is to make informed decisions quickly, avoid litigation, maintain state authority wherever possible, and save time and money. And so that bottom pyramid, if you will, the basics of what we do are, what is it? for a species and a habitat. Where is it in the state and how is it doing? Next slide. Just an example of our geodatabase holdings for observations, surveys, models, and species of concern occurrences. Next slide. We also manage, in addition to species information, habitat information. The two major portions of habitat information that we manage in the state are the statewide land cover layer. That's natural vegetation communities, as well as human altered communities. And then on the right side, the National Wetland Inventory, wetland and riparian mapping. We bring that all together in an environmental summary report that can be run in under 2 minutes, very quickly to run for agency resource managers. The general public can put in requests and we will fill those within a business day. They're designed to be plugged right into all National Environmental Policy Act and Montana Environmental Policy Act processes and all the permitting processes in the state as a document of record. It comes with this PDF of this environmental summary report and also an Excel file and field guides to tell the users about the species that are included in the report. And I just wanted to remind you, this is a slide I had presented to you earlier, what the use looks like. So on the upper left there, private versus federal versus state and tribal. In the middle, the breakdown of state users. And on the right, the breakdown of federal users of our information. And then on the right side is a listing of the number of individuals in those agencies that have map viewer accounts and can run those environmental summary reports, again, within just a couple of minutes. Okay, bats. So bats are, I'll just give you a little background on bats. There are about 1,300 bat species worldwide. That's about 20% of all the mammals in the world. 45 bat species in North America. We have 15 shown on your poster in front of you and on the screen there. They are really unique in terms of how long they live, 40 years, some of them. Maybe one pup a year, sometimes two, but mostly one. So they're a long-lived species that is not very fecund. And so when you impact a few adults, you can really impact the population. They are really unique physiologically. They can have heart rates that are up in the 1,200 beats per minute when they're flying, immediately go to around 400 beats per minute when they land, and then go down to 10 beats per minute in the winter when they're hibernating. They use ultrasonic echolocation for navigating. They're not blind as a bat though. They see about the way we do, but they use that ultrasonic echolocation to navigate in the dark and discriminate fine objects like mosquitoes. And they, I think that's about what I wanted to say. So yeah, question.
What percentage of mammals did you say were bats?
20%. Yeah. 1,300
1,300
species and about
20%.
that represents 20% of all the different mammals in the world. Yeah.
And we have 15.
We have 15 species in Montana. Yep. Yep.
Interesting.
So, you know, why do we care about bats, or why should we? And I've put a few stats in this slide here. A single bat, little brown bat, which is the most common bat in Montana, can consume 1,200 mosquitoes in an hour. So we have people that put up bat houses all over the state purposely for attracting bats and to control insects in their backyard. This is actually a really important human health issue here from the standpoint of controlling spread of diseases. If you care about sage grouse and West Nile virus impacts on sage grouse, if you care about your horses and West Nile virus impact on your horses, think a bat. On the agricultural side, some stats there, 150 big brown bats can eat 33 million cucumber beetles each summer. 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats from Bracken Cave in Texas eat 200 tons of insects nightly. So their positive impact on our agricultural economy is in the tens of billions of dollars each year. They're also important for pollination. and reseeding forests, and bats have been used for a lot of medical treatments. Vampire bats, the saliva that keeps blood flowing, that's been used as an anticoagulant for stroke victims. So, next slide. So again, why do we care about bats? They're facing a variety of threats here. And I just want to focus on two of the big threats that we're really focusing a lot of attention on. The first is wind energy development. And those 3 species that are shown in the upper left there account for about 75% of the documented mortalities at wind farms. And those wind farms do seem to be imperiling those 3 species. They're all migratory tree roosting species, and it appears that they look at wind turbines as big trees on the landscape that they can kind of hang out around, and they will get struck by the wind turbines and impacted by the pressure wave of the wind turbines. On the right-hand side of the slide is a disease summary of white nose syndrome. It's a disease, a fungal disease. The fungus is named Pseudogymnoastis destructans, introduced in the eastern US, and then has been moving westward as shown in the map there on the right. Those red cells are just in the last couple of years. So it just arrived in Montana in the last couple of years. You can see the bats at the bottom there with white on their muzzle, and that is that fungus, and it is basically eating away at their skin, gets into their blood. They wake up in the middle of the winter and starve to death. Next slide. So some of the next slides, I'm going to summarize what we've been doing in collaboration with all these partners. And I don't have all of our partners here. I was realizing that this morning that Northwestern Energy is a really important partner on this as well with their Spine-Cop wind farm. But this is not just us. This is us working in collaboration with all these agencies on these issues and individual organizations. 2 main prongs of research. One is roost monitoring. We've done a variety of bridge monitoring, bat house monitoring, tree roost monitoring. Bottom left there is cave and rock outcrop. Next slide. I have to share, I'll go back 1 slide. Just wanted to share this one with you. This is Lick Creek Cave. Check out the size of it. That's me in the very, very background there. You could fit a big jumbo jet inside this cave. It's really impressive. Straight to the north of us. Yep. Yep. This one is, yeah. This one is, it's been gated, but you can still gain access. Lick Creek Cave. And this one has a couple hundred overwintering bats in it. Next slide. The other main focus of monitoring has been acoustic monitoring. And we put out these automated recording units that record the ultrasonic calls that the bats make. Those go on a data card, then they come to us. And what's important for you to understand is we actually have a position at the library that's assistant zoologist and bat data analyst. There are about on the order of 10 people in all of the Western United States that have the skills to do this. And so that's kind of why the library and the Montana Natural Heritage Program have been a central point. Is we can't afford to have multiple people trained in how to identify these bat calls and to focus all their time on it. And so and as a library, we maintain a bat call library for the state with millions of calls in it. Next slide. So I want you to zoom in with your eyes on that photo of the bat there, and you'll notice that it's got a little lasso around its neck. This is something that we were involved with early on, and that is just getting recordings of bats so that we could have this bat call library. And you take these bats and you put a little lasso around them and run them down a zip line and record their calls and build up a library of what those calls look like. And on the right side of this slide, you can see the various call types. These tell us a lot about, these are individual bats, species. They tell us a lot about what the bat does. Those flat calls down at the bottom are open air flyers, very fast flying, 30, 40 miles an hour, eating big beetles. The steep ones at the top are bats that kind of hover around trees. They need a lot of information to kind of weave in and out of tree limbs and things like that. And they'll eat the small gnats and mosquitoes. Next slide. We right now are very heavily involved with the North American Bat Monitoring Program, which is putting all these cells out across the state, across all these agencies. And then the acoustic information, there are 4 acoustic sampling sites in each one of those cells. All that acoustic information flows to us to process the calls and analyze them. Next slide. So let's just show you just a few of some of the highlights that we've come up with this research. Those blue cells that you see in the middle, at the top there are months going across from left to right. On the left side are individual bat species. Those blue cells are the months before we did this effort when we knew we had bats in Montana. All of those other cells have come from this research and that acoustic deployment. Because as bat researchers, you go out and you try to catch them when you know they're there in the summer. Look at that, they're out year round. They're out and active. We found some bats out and active at minus 20 degrees Celsius, so minus 4 or 5 Fahrenheit. Next slide. I'm going to show you a series of these slides where the blue columns show you what is available to the bats, and the red shows you what the bats are actually using. And on the bottom of this is temperature. And so you can see the temperature range. Bats are more active at higher temperatures than are available in general. That's when they tend to be active. Bats are also more active when it's darker outside, and you will literally see bat activity pick up when the moon drops below the horizon. You will literally see bats using the landscape like big canyons. They will dip down into that dark canyon and use that preferably over being out in the moonlight. They're also more active. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Next slide. Actually, stay on that one there. So this one shows you wind speed, and this one is really critical. And Northwestern Energy, working with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, has used this data to guide how wind turbines are run in the state on a voluntary basis. So you can see here at about 1 to 3 meters per second there on the bottom, those bars over to the left side, that's when bats are more active than would be expected. And once you get up into the 4 to 5 to 6, then they're less than active than would be expected. So what we can do is provide guidelines to wind farms to curtail their wind energy development at lower wind speeds. And you can also do that on nights when it's dark, when it's lighter. For instance, they could run their turbines longer. And so all together, again, Northwestern Energy and Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks have used this data to come up with voluntary guidelines so that bats aren't impacted, but they're still generating power at, roughly 97% of what they could if they just let them run all the time. On the roost monitoring, I wanted to just make this big point. What we learned is that we do not have large roosts of bats in Montana compared to the East Coast. In the East Coast, they roost in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in individual caves. Our very biggest one, Azure Cave up there in the upper right, was about 1,800 bats. That's our very biggest roost in Montana. Most of our bats are roosting in like rock outcrops and crevices and little hidey holes across the landscape. And we're hoping that that bodes well for us as white nose syndrome moves in. Unfortunately, the really sad story is those 2 biggest dots up there, that Azure Cave, 95% of those bats did die 2 winters ago when the white nose syndrome hit them. Mystery Cave down there in the Pryor Mountains at the bottom of the map, those bats were struck with white nose syndrome this spring. And very, very high mortality rate there as well. So next slide. I wanted to end my presentation today just by talking about how our information, having it centralized here at the State Library, is super important for coordination of agencies and local control over management of our species in Management Montana. So you can see this map of mostly eastern Montana there. And this is of northern Myotis. And there's kind of a purple shading along the lower Missouri River and the lower Yellowstone River. That is what we know from documented surveys is the range of the species in the state. You can see the observations there in black. And we've run predicted habitat suitability models for this species, and you can see those in yellow as low suitability, red as optimal, and should be some orange colors in there too that are moderately suitable. When this species first was listed, this is a species that was listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. That box that I got there, that dark line, every area there across the eastern border of Montana, anytime they did any federal action, state action that was considering impacts to the land, they would have to run through a whole bunch of paperwork and environmental reviews for this species. With the information that we put in place, they have now restricted that review process to the areas there that you can see are kind of in yellow blocks, light yellow blocks. And so all those other areas no longer have to deal with that paperwork process. Furthermore, we think you can see the difference between those yellow squares there and what we're showing as the range of the species, what we know it to be in purple. We think we'll eventually get somewhere to where that purple area plus maybe some of those yellow and areas coming off of the purple there that are from our predicted habitat model will be the areas that people will have to deal with the paperwork process in the environmental reviews, and that a lot of those other yellow square blocks are going to fall out. So I wanted to give you, like, this is a huge deal in terms of paperwork. Like if you were putting an oil pipeline through this area or a major electric line through this area, it's a huge deal for those companies to have to be able to avoid this paperwork. Next slide. I wanted to give you one other example. This is for piping plover. And the Fish and Wildlife Service manages maps on where Section 7 consultation paperwork is required. What they initially produced was the upper map there and all of those dark areas. With our data that we had, we were able to limit those areas to, you can see the green in the bottom map there. And it's not just the green, but it's the predicted suitable habitat models. So you can see some yellows and reds within the green. The green is what we have shown is this is the summer range of this species. And so now they're doing paperwork just within the predicted suitable habitat within the green. So again, a huge difference in terms of how many paperwork hoops and folks are having to jump through based on this common data set. So, and with that, I'll take any questions. And we've really just, I hit some highlights. So there's a lot there to go through. Hopefully that gave you a little better sense of how our information is used and where we're headed with things.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell, for showing the economic benefit. Fascinating. Appreciate it.
Right.
You're welcome. And Tom, we have a post. I'll save a poster for you because as I remember from previous meetings, you have I think a grandson that might appreciate one. So
yeah, do you have 10 of them?
We will. We do.
10 grandsons. Okay, Bryce, that was great. Very so interesting, and it's so interesting that people can come to the Montana State Library and get that information to avoid environmental paperwork that they have to do. I'm sure it's all for weeds, for everything.
Yeah, there is one other thing that I would say, and that is, the program has been around since 1985, and largely we've focused on centralizing information so that it's available for these environmental reviews. Just in the last few years, we have really realized that we will take an environmental summary report and hand it off for every hundreds of processes that are out there, but we haven't necessarily tailored that report to an individual process. So we think there's a lot of gains to still come. Process A, maybe you're only using a portion of it. Maybe we can do a training video that helps people plug that information right into their process to save them time. We've already done that for the wood products industry. We did something similar for some weed folks. DEQ is interested in talking to us about how we can use that for 310 permits when you're impacting stream side. So I think we can make things even easier for people moving forward.
Interesting. That's great. Great that we can provide that service. Carmen?
it just makes me even less keen on wind power. Hydro is the way to go, but whatever.
Bryce, I had a question. You had mentioned the first time you spoke with us that, you know, you were using these listing of endangered species, and you had mentioned that there was the world, the federal, and the state. And today you mentioned the federal and state. Is that the endangered list you mostly depend on?
I missed your first world. You said,
Well,
what was the first word you said?
Something about there's a world endangered species
Oh.
list. And then there's a federal one and then a state. And which one do you use the world one, or do you pretty much use the federal and state?
So there is a world scheme. It's called the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The federal law is the Endangered Species Act. That when people say that, we do have an Endangered Species Act in Montana, but it has never been really used. Our data is a species of concern list, and it would also be a habitats of concern list. There are no regulatory requirements associated with that per se. And I think the legislature, the tone that we hear from them is, yes, we want to just keep doing this and putting this look before you leap list in place to avoid these listings, to reduce the paperwork instead of locking people down. But if we continue to sort of pay attention to those species and don't harm them needlessly, then they're not likely to be federally listed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any further comments?
Thank you.
Yes, Bryce.
Yeah, you're
thank
very
you.
welcome. I'll leave more BAT posters here.
Great.
And Tom, I'll save some for you next time.
Good.
Tom, I'll bring yours, and when you come for corn, you can have it.
Oh, so you want to, so Tammy will take Tom's to him.
Oh, perfect.
All right, well, thank you, Bryce. Okay, we now are on to the state library reports.
So I just have one question. Do we know what kind of bat you found?
Oh, here, Bryce, you want to come look at it? I have a picture. It looks like a crispy critter bat to me
And where did you find it?
in our yard.
And they live on a ranch at
Fairly-
Geraldine.
Yeah. Okay. What does that look like?
Probably a little brown bat,
Little brown.
little brown myotis.
So it's a little brown myotis.
Probably.
Probably. Interesting. It doesn't have a white nose, it doesn't look like. Does it or does it?
Does not that I saw.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the identification. Okay, Jenny, we'll go on to the state library reports.
Thank you very much. You have in your meeting materials our standard first quarter reports with an update on the progress towards meeting our objectives on our fiscal year 25 projects from the state library. Our update on the website Broken Links report, based on discussion from the State Library Commission. We've been tracking that. We have been making some significant updates and changes to the website, trying to put in place processes for providing information like some of our trustee manuals, library director manuals, and other things that's causing us to identify some additional broken links on our website that we're working to clean up. But in that process, we're making the process of updating our website more efficient for the future. I did specifically want to call attention to our fiscal year 24 annual report. We really appreciate the discussion and feedback we had at your August meeting. And I think you can see how we were able to incorporate your recommendations into that overall report. I did want to ask for any feedback about the annual report here today, so we can continue to improve that effort and understand better how well the annual report met your needs. You have your first quarter contracts and staffing report, as well as the standard reports that we've been providing to the interim budget committee each quarter. And then one additional new report that you might not be familiar with is the status of GIS readiness for Next Generation 911 report. That is a report on how we are expending the state 911 dollars to advance the GIS preparedness for the state to move to next generation 911. As a part of that statutory appropriation, we are required to submit a biennial report to the Legislative Energy and Telecommunications Interim Committee. And so we've shared that report here with the commission as well. Very happy to answer any questions you might have about any of our standing reports. And again, I would certainly appreciate any feedback you have about the annual report itself.
I would like to say I like the format better than last year's. I think there's a lot of data here, a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff that's easier to look at and interpret and get some information from for the, I'm assuming this is for the public to give them better insight and on what their tax dollars are being spent on at the state library. There was one item on page 5 that
Clarify which document you're on up there.
Could you bring it up? Thanks, Genevieve.
the fiscal year 2024.
The annual report. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Having trouble. Thank you.
So if you can go to page 5, where the library lays out the key changes in administrative rule. The second one that deals with 10-102-1160 says an amendment to the public library standards remove the requirement for directors of libraries that serve over 25,000 people to have a Master of Library Science or equivalent degree. The change reflects the State Library Commission's opinion that local library boards should be given responsibility to set library director qualifications, as the community may require a different skill set or knowledge base. I don't agree that that reflects an opinion of the state library. I think that reflects Montana code. Because 21-1310 says verbatim that the hiring of the director is under the control or is the responsibility of the local board. So it's not a matter of opinion that the state library should not make rules and regulations that contradict Montana code. If it's in the code that it's the local library board that does the hiring, if the state library sets some kind of condition on what person the local board should or should not hire, I think we were interfering with something that's outlined in the Montana code. And if I understand it correctly, the statutes, the code absolutely supersedes administrative rules. The rules are meant to help execute what's in the code. So it's not, I would like that changed. It's not the State Library Commission's opinion. It is actually Montana code that local library boards do have the responsibility to set the qualifications and to hire and to set the salary, to set the degree requirements. That is not the state library's job to interfere with that. So I'd like to make a motion that we change that sentence.
Not on the agenda, so you can't do a motion.
Oh, okay. So we can just discuss it this time and please put it on the agenda for next meeting that we change that verbiage.
I would support putting that on the agenda. I think it is incorrect.
That was my only concern about the report. Other than that, I think it is much improved and useful for the public.
Yes, it's very, very understandable. Very clear cut. And
Madam Chair,
yes, Tom.
as a matter of discussion, it would simplify that section if the entire second sentence was removed and just leave it with the first sentence without the additional detail. So we might consider that as part of the action in a future meeting. If changing this verbiage is even required by action by the commission. Thank you.
I don't know, does it require action? Or does it not require action?
We're happy to take your recommendation without action.
Okay.
But I would rather see that come up for action so it's clear. I think sometimes we need to make things clear in our action and in our record. So I'd rather see it come forward. And then it would just read that first statement. An amendment to the public library standards, remove the requirement of directors of libraries that serve over 25,000 people to have a master's of library science or equivalent degree, period. Is that what you're saying, Tom?
Yes, if we decide this is merits action, that's my proposal. But that's
Yeah,
come later if we had to have
Yeah.
a motion.
We'd make
Instead
that
of-
later.
instead
but bring it at a
Okay,
later
if we
time.
want, if
Yeah.
we want to have it on
But
the
I would
agenda,
like to
that's
have it
fine.
as an action.
Okay, we can put that on the agenda for next time then. As an action item. Okay. Is there anything else? I'm sorry, Jenny, go ahead. If there's anything else about the annual report.
No, again, I appreciate your feedback. Rebecca in particular worked hard to try to incorporate the feedback that we received from you in August. I'm very pleased to hear that it feels like we're making progress and improving that.
Is this the time to ask how they're doing on the fundraising of the cadastral?
I believe you might be referring to the MDIA
Mhm.
funding and the status of the funding that we're receiving. As was reported at the finance committee, and it looks like Melissa stepped out. The revenue is essentially flat. We're not seeing any kind of increasing in revenue when compared to this time last year. But as we talked about earlier, the budget cuts, the constraints that we put in place for budgeting for this fiscal year were put in place with an eye to the fact that we may not see increased revenue. So financially, we're doing well. But at this point in time, we haven't begun seeing any kind of increase in revenue. And Melissa's back, so if you have further questions, she's available as well.
I just remember we had certain percentages we had to reach on new people signed up for it. And I wondered if,
I'm sorry, you're talking about the Montana real time.
right, the real-time network, are we getting close?
Our target for the end of this year is 100, and I heard earlier this week we're at 67, so we're making good progress.
Oh, good.
The end of this fiscal year?
The end of the fiscal year, that's right.
So we have till next June. So we're doing really well to be at 67.
I think so too.
Oh, that's great.
Did you have anything else about any of the other reports?
I have nothing else unless there's more questions.
Okay, is there any other questions about any of the information that we were given about the real-time network, the hotspot, the HB 946 study? Is there any further information that you sent out a paper on that?
Yeah, so you have in your meeting materials, the HB 946 study, you might recall, was the study of whether or not there might be any cost savings if the three small agencies, the State Library, the Historical Society, and the Arts Council, received administrative services from the Department of Administration. And so what is linked in your meeting materials is that analysis that was conducted by the Legislative Fiscal Division. They determined that at best, there was no immediate cost savings, and at worst, it would actually cost our agencies more to receive those direct administrative services. So this report concludes the study that the legislature is conducting about that matter.
I apologize. Which one is that on?
It's the
Budget Committee HB 9.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
946.
Could you bring that one up on?
I have, do you want to see it?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Okay.
see there. I'm having trouble bringing it up.
I have it printed off if you'd like to see it.
Yeah. Interim budget, okay. Yeah.
You got through that.
Mhm. I got through it. Yeah,
Okay, so
for
what is
sure.
it doing?
Yeah. I don't know.
Sometimes I feel like,
If here, I can just give her my.
there we go.
I got it.
I don't
I
know.
finally had to
You have
get
it.
it, but I
Great.
couldn't go through
Maybe
the,
we were both having the same.
I can't go through the legislatemontana.gov. I had to go through my
Mm.
iPhone one.
Okay. Right, anyone? Let's see. Okay, well, how about we'll go on now. If there isn't any other comments or discussion about any of the state library reports,
I just found my notes, sorry.
okay,
I had a question on the annual report, page 11. Apologize for going back there. The
and
2024 annual report. On page 11, statewide resource sharing. On the first graph, it says the measure is total interlibrary loans borrowed. And I was wondering, are we talking interlibrary loans or are we talking shared catalog? Because my library makes a real distinction between shared catalog. That's not an interlibrary loan that comes with the courier, and an ILL is completely separate. You pay postage, blah, blah. So which, are we really statewide resource sharing? Are we looking at actual interlibrary loans?
I think Rebecca's online, so I want her to correct me if I'm wrong. But this measure is a measure of any borrowing that occurs amongst libraries, whether it's through traditional interlibrary loan or through the resource sharing groups that would include the courier.
So it's all of it.
It's all of it.
Yes. Oh, sorry to interrupt. A little bit of lag there on the online side. Yes, you're correct. And that aligns with the federal definition, which includes your sharing between libraries via the Montana Shared Catalog. That's considered a vehicle for interlibrary loan, as is the OCLC group services. So it would include both of those.
Thank you for clarifying that.
May I ask a question about library attendance? Tom, when you were looking at your quotes and when you sent us or when you publish your talk about these information on how many people are visiting the libraries, what are you using for your source?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner, the source is the PLS, the Public Library Statistics Survey. Yeah, that's nicely presented and available through our dashboards.
Okay. So that did agree with what they were saying about Bozeman. Yeah.
I have one more question on the contracts report. The texting program for $8,000. Well, the first question was, do we have cost for the entire contract? Because some of them are 1 year, 2 years, 3 year, 4 year. Is that dollar column the price for the entire contract or the price for one fiscal year?
So the dollar amount is for the current term of the contract. And then if you wanted to know the entire contract date, we would multiply that by the years that the contract is in effect, the start and end date.
So that's the cost for one fiscal year? Okay, okay. And then I signed up at some point for the texting program. And I was wondering, do we have a way to measure any result of that? If I read it right, it's $8,000 a year. Can we measure how many parents sign up for it? Or do we have any measure whether it gets used at all? How many years have we done it? Is it still relevant?
Yeah. So this is our second attempt at a texting program. I wonder, I was thinking about this when you mentioned this to me before. I wonder if you signed up to our old texting service. This is a brand new texting service that just launched in July. So this is our second attempt. We have gone with more of a contract for service model rather than a texting program that Montana was attempting to administer in-house. We can get use statistics. We can get the number of subscribers. We can get that information. I believe it's all the way down to a zip code. The $8,000 buys us subscription access for 1,000 families. So it's not a universal statewide program. This was really kind of a pilot for us to see how it goes. And because the number of families that can subscribe to it is so limited, we've targeted our outreach to those areas of the state that have the lowest reading scores. And we're working specifically with Head Start to help promote the program to those areas that have the lowest reading scores. But we can get use statistics on the number of subscribers, and I believe Bobby said it's down to the zip code level.
That would be great. I'd be curious to see if people are using it. Thank you.
Jenny, I had a question on the contract report. And it dealt with trails. And if I remember right and I'm very easily confused, so. But the trails was the program through the university system?
That's correct.
Okay. And so my question was, that's 27,000 a year that we give to them?
That's correct.
And is there a reason why we are helping supplement the university system?
So it's really not a supplement. The Trails Consortium, much like some of our work for statewide library resources, they go out and procure resources like research databases that libraries that participate can take advantage of. So our cost is giving state employees access to those research databases that are just procured through the Trails Consortium. It saves us the time and effort to have to go out to procure those resources on behalf of state employees, and it's much more cost effective for us to do that through Trails.
What kind of products?
They're research databases that are provided by
Hi,
research
Lori. Good, how are you?
that need
I have
access
a few
to,
apples for you. We didn't have very many this year.
Well, I know it wasn't a good year. I hate to even take your.
Oh, no, we had enough for us, definitely.
Okay.
but I wanted to be sure that we
Hello?
got used some before.
Oh,
Mhm,
That's cute. Somebody's talking to a baby,
mhm.
I think.
Yeah. So these are-
Okay.
Yeah, research journals, research databases that state employees use to conduct their work.
But if it's through the university system library, then I'm not sure why we are paying the 27. What are we getting for the 27,000?
Montana state employees are getting access to those research databases. They wouldn't have access through the universities because they're not students, but they're getting access to those databases because we are paying for them.
Because I went to look and I was not allowed to,
Do you?
because I'm
you-
not a state employee.
Yeah, but if you had a library card, we could get you a library card through the state library as a state library commissioner, and then you would have access.
Okay. I guess I would like it. How long have we belonged to the Trails program?
Oh, probably 6 or 7 years at least now.
Do we know how many people use it?
We can get you those use.
Okay, because that's quite a bit,
Mhm.
that little healthy chunk of money.
Yep.
And I think the Board of Regents has considerable, but
Well,
So is this,
I think the point is that if the state library bought those databases independently, it would cost considerably more than $27,000. Because by banding together, essentially, we become a buying club and we have more leverage to negotiate. So the Board of Regents isn't, or so the Montana University system isn't getting one penny of that 27,000. It's going to the vendors.
so we are
Mhm.
saving money by collaborating with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's.
but
that's
we
the
don't know if they're used. Why are
I
they
think this-
different venues than what we have access to ourselves? Is it just your research, like university library?
What the state agencies use, correct?
That's right. Right.
It just overlaps with what the universities use too. So when we band together, we both
Mhm.
benefit from some discounts.
Yes.
Kind of like what the public libraries do when they band together,
Right.
they can get certain products a little bit cheaper because of
Mhm.
volume. I think that's the same,
Mhm.
same idea with this collaboration.
If we use it.
I
And
think
I
state
don't know.
employees do, because I think we'd have to replace it, right? We have to buy this. That's part of our job, to provide the information to to the other state agencies. So I think we have to do that. And we're just saving some money.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments about the state library reports? If not, we'll go on to our annual business calendar and our federation meeting information. Is there any questions about the business calendar? I mean, we're on track for what's going on. We had our federation, yep, in October, we completed everything already. Awesome. All right. And then for our federations, I think they've all, did you end up visiting the Sagebrush, Carmen?
No, I only did the one.
Okay, so yeah, the Sagebrush wasn't attended, and I think it wasn't just Carmen, I believe maybe myself, I was down on the list and I wasn't able to attend it either. And we had our finance meeting the same morning at 9 o'clock, and but I believe all the other ones were attended, and then Peggy, I know, is attending one coming up. Which one is that?
The Tamarack one
The Tamarack,
is
right.
remaining, and I think Peggy and probably Carmen.
Carmen
will be
too,
attending
right?
as well.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
All
Does
right.
anybody have any feedback about your attendance at those meetings? We talked a little bit about the YA discussions. Any other feedback about the meetings?
I just think the federations are ideal for us to, to work through for training and all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
I do have a question for Jenny, and maybe, sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe in our December meeting, we do have a meeting in December, right?
Yes.
Could you give us a little bit, for those of us who haven't been involved in legislative sessions before, a sort of a primer on what our role might be as commissioners and what we can do to assist the state library?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And I was going to let you know that Dylan Plattmeyer, the education policy advisor from the governor, is going to be here to talk about some of their legislative priorities as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, well, if there is no more further discussion, we will adjourn for lunch. And we will be back at 1 o'clock with a presentation. All right, thank you.
Well done.
Library and library trustees to better understand collection development and library policies and procedures. Despite being in its early stages of development, the ALP has attracted charter members from 37 U.S. states and 3 Canadian provinces. The ALP strives to live up to its mission to advocate for the promotion of fair, unbiased, non-sectarian library and information services for all users, enhance excellence in librarianship, organize ongoing educational and networking opportunities, and to provide support to library administrators, government and community stakeholders, and library workers in delivering exceptional library services while upholding the fundamental philosophical principles of our shared culture. In April 2024, the ALP Senate adopted a code of ethics for library professionals. I would like to share with you a portion of the introduction of the code of ethics. Library professionals recognize the dignity, value, and worth of every human being. The library professional endeavors to treat all persons with respect and dignity and strives to attain greater understanding and respect for the uniqueness and intrinsic worth of every individual. The library professional commits to support the unalienable rights of all to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Library professionals desire to provide all individuals the materials and information necessary to help them achieve their fullest potential as an independent and productive citizen of a free society. Library professionals acknowledge that they hold significant power and influence in the process of creating, recording, preparing, cataloging, sharing, and disseminating information, and in assisting users in their comprehension and wise application of newly acquired knowledge. It is our ethical obligation to cultivate collections that are accessible and available to all members of the communities that we serve, always preferring the advancement of shared cultural values and local standards over our personal opinions and beliefs, especially in regard to controversial socio-political topics. Library professionals understand the importance of holding as a key philosophical value of librarianship the innate desire of each individual to pursue truth and knowledge. Library professionals understand the importance of creating and maintaining spaces for self-directed access to information, educational resources, and other materials for the personal development and enrichment of their users. Well-managed libraries and library services are vital to the cultivation and maintenance of a well-informed, diverse, self-governing society. Library professionals recognize the pluralistic nature of all self-governing modern societies and seek to create spaces, collections, and library environments that are welcoming to everyone. We strive to foster healthy discourse that respects each person's point of view, and we work toward the mutual understanding of all parties in the development of our shared community values. So this has been a brief overview of our history to date and some of our ethical positions and statements. Membership in the ALP is open to library professionals and also to advocates who align with our core principles and objectives. And with that, I would be glad to answer any questions that I could. I don't know why my video is going weird like that. I suppose you all can see that as well.
That's okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Caleb.
Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned the upcoming second summit, and there was one other event that you mentioned early on in your remarks. What was that one?
There is in the works, and we're hoping for February at this point, but we're kind of behind the gun, as you can imagine, getting the word out and so forth. But tentatively, we're calling that Base Camp, and the goal is to have that be a one-day virtual event to help sort of I don't want to say non-educated, but folks without the professional training of like a master's in library science or library and information management. So folks who are moms, dads, community members, trustees of libraries, local business people, things of this nature who are interested in how libraries develop their collections and policies and procedures, especially as pertains collection development and reconsideration.
Thank you.
When was the summit?
The summit was the
I
first.
mean, the next one.
Oh, the upcoming one, we haven't set a for sure date yet. If we keep the same schedule we did this last year, it would be August.
And then the name ALC.
ALP, Association of Library Professionals. Sometimes people say ALP. And so our logo actually has the suggestion of a mountain. And so you hear us use terms like summit and base camp and stuff like that, kind of using that wordplay.
Is there, I'm sure, a fee to join or to be an advocate?
We're currently in a charter membership phase. And so that actually ends about a year from now. At the end of October 2025, we'll close that charter membership period. And so to become a charter member, anyone, regardless of library education or position, like you mentioned, advocates even, can join for a $50 donation. And that does give you access to our email list and our coffee talk events that we hold virtually once a month. And we also have sections for different types of libraries. We have an advocate section, we have archives, we have public library section, academic library section, and one for special libraries as well. Oh, and school libraries. I may not have mentioned school libraries.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
maybe Caleb, could you give us the website address?
Certainly, that is alplibraries.org.
Thank you.
Plural libraries.
Correct. alplibraries.org.
Okay, so as a charter member, my mic sounds really loud. As a charter member, it's $50 annually?
Well, right now we're in charter membership phase,
Right.
so we're not into an annual
Oh, okay.
membership yet. That will begin starting October of 2025.
So as a
You
charter
kind of get a
member-
little bit more than a year if you join like right away.
So, right, so it's free after you pay the $50 then as a charter member?
You're just a full member until then the
Oh.
annual membership starts
Got it.
rolling, which
Okay.
is in about a year.
I see, got it, okay, okay, all right. Are there any other questions?
So would you say your purpose is just to create an alternative to ALA, or what is the purpose other than maybe be less political, you said?
Yeah, we don't specifically name organizations that we're different from, but I think it's probably pretty well known that legacy library associations have taken, in our opinion, a turn to one particular side of the spectrum politically, and also very much engaged in social activism, promoting and encouraging certain points of view and silently eliminating from the public space other points of view. And I think that for most regular folks out there who just want library service, they're growing more and more uncomfortable with it. And certainly I can only speak for myself and those like me in the association. We just got so tired of the social political activism that we wanted a neutral association to support library service for all users. For far too long, we feel that local folks have not had really a say in the services and opportunities and programming and so forth that their public library selects. And I think it's beyond time for us to sit down candidly with the folks that we serve and give excellent library service that doesn't intentionally offend anybody or pick a side.
Thank you.
I actually don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment. This really makes me think of something that I think has bugged me, but I couldn't really put it to a point, and now I can. To me, it's not compatible with claiming that you are neutral if you are at the same time advocating for something. And somehow I feel like some library staff that I've come in contact with maintains the proud position that they are neutral, and then in the same breath can tell me that they're advocating for LGBTQ rights or whatever else. And I'm like, that's incompatible. If you're neutral, you cannot at the same time be an advocate for something. In my view, those are two contradictory things. And I think the emphasis when you introduced yourself, you said neutral, neutral, neutral. that just, that made that click for me. I think that's something that I knew in my gut, something was weird, but I couldn't quite put a name to it. And I think now that's what it is. You know, you can advocate in your private life for whatever you want, but in your role as a librarian, you should not be an advocate for anything, because once you're advocating for something, you're not neutral. And, you know, that doesn't preclude you from advocating for more funding or any of that kind of advocacy, but there's other advocacy going on in the job that you shouldn't be doing while you're doing your job as a supposedly neutral librarian. And I think you're harping on neutral just made me realize that. So thank you.
I would tend to agree with you on that, and in way of example, and I'm sure all of us could bring up our own library in our own minds as I share this, but recently a small city library near where I live, I had opportunity to visit and just kind of browse their books on display. And I saw that they were all very much pro one side of the political spectrum, and didn't see anything on the other side, except for I did find one that was anti that particular individual. And so one might suspect that the community would be on that particular side of the spectrum. And so I happened to pull the election results for the last several general elections, and it actually showed the exact opposite. And so that just, if you were a Martian dropping down out of outer space and doing library service and offering to your folks things that they are interested in and things that they are excited about, you do a much better job than that. And so I think that that does show, just in way of example, the slanting and the non-neutrality that there is. We should be reflecting our communities, their values and the things that they are interested in. Not to say that we exclude the other side. I would think, you know, in way of remedying that situation in that library, if I had any kind of opportunity to influence what they do, I would not say take out books that are there. I would say increase the amount of books that they have and actually add things that show balance and that show inclusiveness and different points of view. I think that the library is a better place when we represent more diversity of opinion and viewpoint as opposed to less.
Well said.
Are
I'm
there-
looking at your webpage. It's quite good.
Are there any other comments or questions for Caleb? This is very informative.
I actually first thought when it was on the agenda that somebody from Manhattan's going to speak, I thought it was Manhattan, Montana.
Oh, oh, yes, there's 3 Manhattans, Caleb.
Okay. More than one little apple.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and the information. And we'll see if we can get you some more charter members.
Absolutely. If you have any further questions for me, you can reach out to me on the email, and that is president@alplibraries.org.
If you would allow me, Caleb, we had a very long discussion today about the YA sections in libraries and what they actually cover, and because we had all the way from the ALA saying now it's 12 to 35 to people saying it's 10 to 25 and 8, and most people thinking it's 13 to 18. In your mind, if there's a YA section, what do you view it as, or what do you think your members do?
Personally, I would say that YA would be younger than full adult. So I would put it at probably the beginning. The front end of it can be a little bit different from community to community, but I would say probably approximately 13 or 14 up until about 18. I think once you get to that stage, you know, why not browse the adult collection? I mean, adults can browse whatever part of the library that they want to. I don't know that you necessarily need to pigeonhole certain folks and target things at them. I don't think it's productive to slice and dice the adult collections. And I mean, so would you say senior citizen collection and not let everybody else go to that section either? I think that's kind of silly to subdivide adult collections in that way.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Caleb. We appreciate the information.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
good
much for
day.
having me. You
Yeah.
as well.
All right, we'll go on with our meeting. Is there any public comment or is there any other business? We didn't do that. Well, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment or any matter that not contained in this agenda and that is within the jurisdiction of the State Library Commission?
There's one comment online.
Go.
In the spirit of neutrality, will MSL Commission have presentations from other associations who are involved in libraries?
The MLA has been here, right? Has presented to us.
Okay, any other comments?
Yes, we have had it in MLA.
Yes. Any other further public comment? Okay, all right, is there any other business or announcements?
I just want to thank everybody who made today's meeting happen. It was very informative, very helpful. I appreciate it a great deal.
We covered a lot today. So. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that the October 9th, 2024 meeting of the MSL Commission is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
We did change the December, right? And it's a different date than we had originally planned, right? Was it the December
This-
one we changed?
Right,
I thought it was-
December.
I have it.
11th, the 11th. Mhm.
I think it was originally earlier and we moved it up or something, was it?